Madam Chair, we are begun to record.
Okay, super. Well, let me go ahead then and bring this session of the Oregon Aviation Board into session. Just quick note out there for folks, if you've got a telephone or a cell phone or anything else that goes beep, if you could put that on mute, I would appreciate it for everybody that's attending today. And then a quick note of order Vince has got to book at 11 because he's got a no notice construction meeting for the Port of Portland over there. So we are going to move the Joseph Master Plan to right after public comment, if everybody agrees. Any issues out there from any board member? Okay, hearing none, then we'll go ahead and make sure that that's we'll dive right into the master plan so we can have Vince here for that discussion. Okay, so with that, let me drive real quick and we'll get the consent agenda approved. And
Madam Chair, I'm going to go ahead and do roll call for the record.
Thank you for keeping me honest. Appreciate it.
Chair Meeker.
Here.
Vice Chair Granato.
Here.
Mike Oliver.
Here.
Hilda Pareo.
Here.
Catherine Stevens.
Here.
And Madam Chair, Tom Kruger is absent with notice.
Okay, super. Thank you very much. Okay, for the consent agenda, you've got the meeting minutes from both February and March, plenty of time to review it. Anybody have anything that they noted that was incorrect or need to be addressed in either one of those two sets of meeting minutes? Okay, hearing that, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as is?
So moved.
Have a move, first motion by Vince. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
I think I have a second by Mike. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, second by
Yes.
Mike. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as is, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Hearing that, the consent agenda is unanimously approved. Thank you very much. Okay, so I did that rather quickly because we have several folks who want to do public comment. And I saw that we have some folks here for Aurora. I do want folks, I believe Betty is going to talk in her director's update. We have some information on the legal front. So she's going to cover that. If you're interested, please stay tuned for that. So with that, let me hand it over to Kathy and we'll get the public comment portion started.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 4 letters that were submitted under written comment. One from Daniel Haley, a business owner in Independence, the Independence Airport Automatic Gate. A letter from Maurice Reed, a leaseholder at Independence. Topic is Aviation Board comment from Wayne Nooch, a leaseholder at Independence. Topic is N4611L. And Mark Otnad, Public Government Affairs Director, City of Wilsonville, 2022-0412 Wilsonville letter and exhibits to ODAA FAA draft ASA MP comments. Long title. So those are the written comments that were received prior to this meeting. If any are received after this or during this meeting or this morning that turns up in the email, we will add those into the record and get those forwarded to the board. I have some people signed up for public comment, Madam Chair, when you're ready.
Okay, and for those folks at Independence, we copied all that there seems to be some communication issues. Marcy has a thing in there, like Maurice, trying to get a hold of the board and nothing came through. I think we've got that resolved. But then I know there's some communication issues with ODAV as well. So copy the letters, everybody, we got it. We need to work on the communication piece. Got that loud and clear. So with that, let me turn it over to back to Kathy so she can do the step through here on public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first person I have signed up today for public comment is Jake Jacobs about the Oravi Summit.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Meeker and members of the board. I'm Jake Jacobs, Executive Director of Oregon Aviation Industries, Oravi. As most of you know, for the last 8 years, our nonprofit group is focused on aviation economic development, positive aviation legislation, and the future of general aviation. Our annual summit this year is going to be Friday, April 22nd, held at the Columbia Aviation Association Clubhouse at the Aurora State Airport. And the topic will be electric aircraft. Aviation currently faces a couple major issues. One of them is leaded fuel, and the move to unleaded gas may solve that problem. The other issue is noise at airports. It limits growth, puts some airports in jeopardy. The G100UL avgas should resolve the leaded fuel issue over the next several years. And electrically powered small aircraft will solve both fuel and noise problems. We're starting to see electric cars on our roads now. I think Tesla has over 2 million of them. And electric aircraft will soon be joining our fleet. It's a radical idea. But Textron and Cessna just purchased Pipistrel, an electric aircraft company, and By Aerospace's E-Flyer 2 electric aircraft is expected to receive FAA certification sometime this year. So these 4 to 9 place aircraft will soon be coming to our airports over the next 5 years or so. And our summit will feature aviation leaders who will discuss the current status and the future plans for electric aircraft. And importantly, the airport infrastructure needed to support them. How do you charge them? Can we generate solar energy at airports? So we hope that some of you can join us Friday, April 22nd, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. for Summit 2022. And you can go to our website for the details and registration, which is oravi.org, ORAVI.org. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jake. And should be a fascinating because it's a very timely topic. I would imagine it would be very informative. I talked to Jake earlier. I happen to be in Bend all day next Friday, so I would like to attend, but I'm not going to be able to. So, but I would encourage other board members that you have a real good chance to, ODAV picks up the ticket, and you get a chance to learn about what's coming on the horizon for electric aircraft. So, should be good. And then I appreciate going forward. Probably need to have some discussion with what's learned out of the summit, and then what we plan to do going forward for concerning, whether it be for master planning purposes or how we make ourselves ready to accommodate electric aircraft, because everybody wants them. So I appreciate the very timely topic, Jake.
Unmute. Jake, would you please put the contact information into the chat for people who would like to follow up?
Yes, I will.
Thank you very much. Next on our list, I have John Horn from Independence. And where are you at? Is John on? I am not seeing him. He did send an email to sign up to speak. So we'll go to the next person, and that's Jon Huntsman.
Hello, I'm Jon Huntsman. I just wanted to introduce myself. I work out of Aurora Airport. I have 3 jobs there. One, I am the chief pilot manager for Aurora flight training, and we have a big flight school there with a bunch of airplanes. And then I also fly for a company where we operate jets. So I'm a pilot. And then there's another company called Brown & Western that I do river survey flights for ODFW and for the Oregon Department of Forestry. We do fire identification and suppression work. And so I want to participate in these meetings more, but I have just been very busy and traveling a lot. And I found out about this meeting kind of at the last minute and was able to attend. So that's my public comment. I just wanted to state who I am, what my stakes are, that I'm a pilot. I work out of the Aurora airport and run the flight school there, and fly other airplanes. And just looking forward to working with everybody and hopefully charting a good path forward for us down there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huntsman.
It's always great to have folks who are interested. Do you know the Tony Helbing out there? They do a lot with the PAN. There's a couple of nonprofit official groups that kind of at Aurora that allow people to interact with kind of a unified voice. Have you met Tony Helbing or any of the gang out there? Bruce Bennett?
Bruce Bennett, I know. Yes, quite well.
With Bruce Bennett.
Pilar, I know quite well.
because they keep it, we work pretty hard with them for issues at Aurora. It's just another way for you to tag in with some local folks there. But I appreciate the interest, and we look forward to seeing you at future board meetings if possible.
Yeah, happy to participate with some of that stuff. Just let me know.
Okay, super.
Thank you very much. Next up on the list is Dan Healy.
Hi, I would like to introduce myself. I am a leaseholder. I built a hangar there right near the run-up pad about 4 years ago. And since then, the fence has been a very contentious issue here at the Independence Airport. We've had a complete lack of communication on how it was going to happen and what exactly was going to happen. And now it seems that the south gate is an electronic gate that I submitted the letter, so I'm assuming everyone read the letter. That now that's going to be closed 24 hours a day, and you have to enter keypad access to get in and out both directions, which is amazing to me because the sensor is already buried in the ground. It's already in use. I don't understand why we need a keypad on the inside. If you compare it to other airports, the Aurora airport has gates that open at 6 a.m. and close at 6 p.m. and they're automatic gates. And I'm trying to figure out why we're not going to have an automatic gate here and have it open during the day for these 4 businesses behind the gate. Those are Airways Unlimited, Independence Aviation, Jeans Flying Service, and Aeroflot. This will restrict their business. They'll have no public access whatsoever. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And I'm hoping that I can get some answers.
Hey, thanks, Dan. Hey, Betty, I thought you were down at Independence 2 days ago talking issues. True, false?
Well, we have the ISAS committee here, yes, and we were discussing that. But we did not, I haven't gotten any answers from ODA. ODA has failed to communicate with us completely. I mean, it's just been terrible. We hear about everything way after the fact instead of, you know, this is what we're planning. How do you think this should go? You know, we have no input.
Okay.
And that's the problem.
All right. So Betty, I'd like to, just because you've been down there very recently, you can either address this now if you can do it quickly, or if it needs a longer, we can go into your director's update and address it there. Your thoughts?
Okay, I'm gonna let I was out there last week. I'm gonna have Tony address this in his report. He's gonna talk about the status of the project and our modifications based on the tenant feedback. So I'd like to have him address that in his report.
Okay, so I want to stay on track here. So Dan, can you hang with us until Tony's update? It's about probably an hour, hour and a half.
Absolutely.
Okay, super. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Madam Chair, that's everybody who had signed up in advance. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board at this time? I see Bruce Bennett. Oh, is that a wave or a hand raise?
Yeah, this is Ted Millar.
Okay.
I'd just like to re-invite the board to come to the Aurora Airport, maybe one of their next board meetings, because I think it's such an important airport in the airport system that with the new board members and all the master planning efforts that are going to be taking place, I think it would be extremely important for everybody to have a hands-on tour of the airport and just see what we're all about. So I'd just like to reintroduce that idea and invite you to Aurora for one of your next board meetings.
You bet, Ted. Appreciate the invite, and we do need to figure out our, as we reinvigorate our on-site board meetings, we'll need to set that. Hey, Bob, Bob Buckman, I believe you have a live mic.
Took care of it.
Okay, got it. Thanks. So yes, we copy all. We got you, Ted.
Anyone else? Bruce Bennett, were you raising your hand? You wanted to speak or just saying, hey?
No, I would like to briefly, I know the Aurora master plan is not on the agenda, excuse me, but there has been a large amount of input, anti-airport negative input on the master plan, and most of it is really misleading. So I'm hoping that ODAV can counter these these letters with the facts. Items that as the rotorcraft operators don't need the runway, and other things that people that don't know any different might accept as fact. And so I just thought it's I'm seeing just a lot of misinformation, and it's important, I think, to enlighten the public with the correct information on the runway at Aurora. And I look forward to working with and helping in that effort. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. And I think we've got some frequently asked questions on our website. We'll continue to put that information out. Like you mentioned, it's best to have ground truth available to everybody.
Okay, anyone else want to address the board under public comment? Either do a hand raise or turn your camera on and try to get my attention. Going once, going twice. Madam Chair, back to you for the next order of business.
Okay, super. All right, so to get Vince here, because we need a vote on our Joseph master plan, we're going to drive right into that. And is Sarah, are you doing the presentation? Heather, over to you guys.
Hi, good morning, Chair Meeker and board members. Let me get my screen going for you. Is that up for everyone to see? All right, so yes, today coming to the board seeking adoption of the Joseph State Airport Master Plan update. Just a quick overview, we'll talk about our State Aviation Coordination Program, or the SAC program, the project schedule, and the public coordination that we underwent for this master plan update, the FAA approvals, findings of compatibility and compliance, and then seeking approval from the board. So first, just briefly, the SAC program, I know you all are familiar with this, but that is our method of ensuring compliance with statewide planning goals in a manner that is compatible with acknowledged local comprehensive plans. The SAC program in its current form was updated in 2017 and adopted by the board. It's in accordance with DLCD ORS 187 and OAR 660, and also detailed in OAR 738. Our SAC program says that we should have a planning advisory committee, or a PAC, that includes federal, state, regional, special districts, and interested parties, which we did have for this project. We exceeded the requirements for our PAC composition, that we should have at least one public meeting, and that the draft plan should be distributed to all participating and parties of record to ensure coordination with local comprehensive plans. So I'll just briefly go through just to show you that we did have 5 public PAC meetings. I did brief this back in February, so I think everybody on the board is aware of the input that was given for this, and just wanted to reiterate that we exceeded the notification standards that we are required to do so that we could get the word out on these public events. As far as the master plan approvals with the FAAs, we know the FAA approves the forecasts and the critical aircraft. And they also approved the airport layout plan, and that was signed in ink by Ben Mello on January 12th of this year. So that is complete. We put out on our website, the project website, at the end of January, a 45-day public notice, public comment period, which was noticed via Gov Delivery. And then we also sent emails directly to DLCD and Wallowa County Planning Department. And I think it's worth noting that DLCD and Wallowa County Planning were very active on the PAC, so they were up to speed. In that 45-day period, we did not receive any public comments, but we did receive reply from Wallowa County and DLCD. So with the findings of compatibility with Wallowa County Planning Department, we did receive a response from Franz Goebel that had 3 comments. These were included in a read ahead material for the board, but of those 3 comments, only 1 required a change. So the final publication will include Article 24, which is the watershed protection area in Appendix C, along with other applicable reference documents. And based on that discussion, Director Goebel responded on February 17th that he had no additional concerns and that the master plan is compatible with the Wallowa County Comprehensive Plan. So staff conclusion is that the master plan is compatible with local government comprehensive plans per OAR 660-031. With our findings of compliance, DLCD responded on February 1st, stating that they found that the master plan update complies with applicable statewide planning goals, lending to a staff conclusion that the master plan is in compliance with statewide planning goals. Which brings us to the board approvals. The final step of the SAC program process is board adoption. And that says that staff must bring to the board the following documents, which is the master plan. We briefed that again back in February, and the public project website is available. The FAA approval letter, which was included in the read ahead memo, as well as staff findings of compatibility and compliance. So before we discuss the motion for board adoption, I just wanted to open it up if there were any questions from board members before voting on adoption of the master plan update.
Okay, any board member, we've had, I think 3 updates previous to this on the Joseph Master Plan. So I appreciate Sarah and the ODAV staff keeping us up to date on this, and it's been pretty straightforward. Any questions from a board member out there concerning process or the result?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Kathy.
Stacy Posgate has asked to address the board. She is legal counsel.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to start my video. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to check in briefly. This is not something I think we've done before. I don't recall which member of the board was absent, but if you could please just formally excuse that person's absence before we go on the vote. This is something that's required under state law.
Say that again, please.
If you could just formally excuse the board member who is absent today. I know that you noted that he is absent, but for the record, if you could just formally excuse that absence before you vote, that would be great.
You betcha. Right now, Tom Kruger is formally allowed for his absence as he's on vacation. So appreciate that, Stacy. So anything else? Any board member at all? Okay, so Kathy, are we ready for me to ask for a motion?
It looks that way to me, Madam Chair. I don't see anybody else on the board with any questions, and any concluding remarks, Sarah?
Okay.
I would be remiss in not thanking Century West Engineering for their work on this project. As always, it's very professional, and want to thank Matt Rogers, David Miller, and Samantha Peterson for all of the work they did on this.
And Sarah, you guys have done great work. And from the board, we just want to say thank you for giving us some, some local flavor there on the board, with feet on the ground there. Just, very engaged, very much with the public. So I appreciate the entire process that you were part of down there, along with the ODAV staff and everybody there at Joseph.
Thank you.
All right. So with that said, I got a little bit of it's a long motion, so hang with me. But I am looking for a first motion that the State Aviation Board adopt the Joseph State Airport Master Plan in its entirety, including the airport layout plan and the capital improvement plan, acknowledging that the capital improvement plan is subject to modification via the annual reissue or issuance of the 5-year SIP by the FAA. Furthermore, the board adopts the findings of compatibility and the findings of compliance. Do I have such motion?
So moved.
We have a first motion by Vince. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from, who was that?
That was
Catherine
Catherine.
From Catherine. All right, so we have a second from Catherine. So all those in favor of the motion as I put out, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing that, the board approves the Joseph Master Plan unanimously. Thank you very much and great work, guys. And Vince, are you going to run off now?
You know, I'm okay. I have to be over there at 11. So, and it'll just be probably 30 minutes and I'll be back.
Okay,
So
super.
I appreciate the flexibility.
Fantastic. Well, let's see. Let's have Betty, do you want to do your update while we have everybody in attendance?
Sure. So give me a moment to share my screen. Okay. Okay, do you see a screen that says April 14th Director's Update? Yep. All right, so good morning. So we have a very full agenda today. So I am going to just be very brief in my comments. I'm going to talk to you about a recap of the recent legislative session, update on the Aurora litigation, state and federal funding, and then on our board vacancies. So you should see a screen that says the 22 legislative session recap. So it was a little over a month long. There was 275 bills filed, 119 of which passed. Department of Aviation only had one bill under consideration, and that was a budget bill to increase our limitation. But there were 3 bills that we were watching.
Betty, your screen did not advance.
My screen's not advancing. Okay.
Vince has got a question.
Well, no, it was just that I wasn't seeing the screen move. That was all.
Okay. Let me try to refresh it. All right, Kathy, are you able to advance my screen?
I will have to share my screen, so hang on.
Okay.
If you stop sharing, then I can grab and go
Okay.
with the presentation, because I do have it queued up here.
Try that.
There it is. And I'm going to share this one. Okay. Sorry about that. It's taking me a minute to switch screens here. Okay. I did something to my my setup here. There it is. View, gallery. There we go. Now I can share. And let me.
Okay. Can you go to slide 3?
Okay, Kathy, we see your screen and we see it advancing.
Fabulous.
Thank you. So, okay, so there was 3 bills that we were watching. 4154, which was a legislator directed funding for $400,000 to the LaGrande Airport for fuel storage expansion. It was heard in joint transportation where it passed unanimously, but it stalled as it was en route to joint ways and means. We understand that was due to some incorrect information being given to that committee leadership. I'm going to go more into that in just a moment. Then there was House Bill 4079, which was a proposed luxury tax on luxury items, including aircraft, and that died without a hearing. And then House Bill 5202, which was the budget bill and the legislator directed spending bill. In that we had the department budget request for a limitation increase, but there were also what we call Christmas presents in there, which were the legislator directed spending. And there were 3 aviation related projects in there. One for the Cape Blanco runway and electrical rehabilitation for about 2.6 million. The Salem Airport upgrade for 540,000, and the Illinois Valley Aircraft Fuel System, which was for 750,000. And that bill was successful and it was signed by the governor in early April. So Kathy, could you go to the next one, please? Okay, just very briefly, I wanted to give you an update on the Aurora litigation. So as you know, we've been in litigation for about 2.5 years now, initially through LUBA, then Court of Appeals, then a Supreme Court request, which was declined, and then it went back to LUBA. And we just received on Monday a decision from LUBA version 2 that remanded the board's October 31st, 2019 decision back to the agency. Since we just received the LUBA decision, and that decision now is under review and discussion with our attorneys, and we will be coming back to the board at the next meeting once we have the judgment issued and we have decided on what the next steps will be. There are 2 circuit court cases that are still pending, remain open, and those were frozen pending the outcomes of the Court of Appeals and LUBA 2 decision. So as a separate topic, we will be in conjunction with the Department of Land Conservation and Development. Early next year, we will be addressing the question raised in Court of Appeals about defining what it does permitting use by a larger class of aircraft mean. So DLCD will be taking up that rulemaking in early 2023.
Betty, just a couple of questions.
Yes, Martha, go ahead.
Just mine can we get a characterization at all from Stacy about, is it good, is it bad, anything that we can share, or does she just suggest we'll bring it up at a different session?
We have Stacy with us. Stacy, do you want to address Chairmaker?
Yes, Chairmaker, my preference is to discuss this in the next session. We can do that in an executive session.
Okay, if we could do that, and then coming out of that executive session, we need to share with the public what we think happened. So I think that's something that we could provide for our tenants at Aurora. Coming out of that session, if you could just help us give some public information that we can provide the folks. A lot of interest in this. I would appreciate it.
Yes, I will be prepared to do that, Chairmaker.
Okay, super. And Catherine.
Yeah, I'm just hoping you could bring me up to speed with the background on this. How was it referred back to the Land Use Board of Appeals? Was it a complaint process?
Okay. Stacy, do you want to take that one or shall I?
I can take it. And I'm sorry, I was trying to see who all is talking. Thank you. Board Member Stevens, this is the type of information that we can discuss in executive session. And if you don't mind, I prefer to do that and we can talk. I can also talk to you separately about it to bring you up to speed, because I think this is only your 2nd or 3rd meeting today.
It is, yeah, officially. Yeah. So, yeah, that might be a good thing. I'm also fine just hearing a recap in executive session. So thank you.
You're welcome. And please reach out to me anytime if you want me to try and explain some of this. It's been going on for a while.
Okay, I don't see anyone else asking a question. Any other board members? Otherwise, we're going to move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so I just wanted to share briefly about the results of the Connect Oregon Final Review Committee. As some of you may know, Oregon Department of Transportation has a grant program for non-road programs or projects, excuse me, called Connect Oregon. For this year, it was limited to aviation, rail, and marine projects only. There was $46 million available. There were 49 applications with a total ask of about 126 million. The largest application was 22.5 million. The smallest application was 105,000. The area commissions on transportation and the modal review committees, of which the State Aviation Board was one of those committees, met in February and March. And then the final review committee met last week. And Chair Meeker was the aviation representative on that final review committee. And I will just add as a personal note, I watched most of that. It was 11 hours over 2 days. And it was a very robust and thoughtful discussion and review. And I greatly appreciate Chair Meeker's guidance and in keeping the committee focused on what the task was and helping them get through to a conclusion that was fair to all of the transportation modes. So we had, again, there was 10 marine applications for a total of 60 million, rail had 21 for 40 million, and aviation had 18 for 25 million. And then after a lengthy discussion and debate by the committee, 4 marine projects were selected for further consideration by the OTC for 25 million. Rail had 7 for 5 million, and aviation had 10 for 16 million. And then the next steps will be, there is a public hearing for if anyone wishes to submit verbal testimony on April 20th. There'll be written comments will be accepted until April 25th. And then the Oregon Transportation Commission will review the recommendations of the final review committee and possibly approve them on May 12th. So with that, Chair Meeker, would you like to add any comments? That was a learning process for me as my first time with Connect Oregon. That was your second time going through Connect Oregon, and that's quite an interesting process.
Yeah, this one was a little bit harder. We had, like Betty talked about, we had robust discussion that we actually ended up having to drive into the second day, which of course is why we had to bump this board meeting, because it rolled over right on the top of when we were supposed to schedule this particular meeting. But overall it went well. You know, we've got to continue make the process a little bit better. I think probably our coming out of this is process wise, we'll work to focus on getting some kind of better structure on how the conversation lays out. But overall, I think everybody recognized which projects, you know, were fully ready to go and which ones had the greatest benefit for all, you know, for the Oregonians across the state. And that's the interesting part of this is when you go to the final review committee, I wasn't there advocating for aviation. That's not what we do. And when we get to the final review committee, our task is to look across the state and go, which one of these, you know, is to rank all 49 projects on their benefit to Oregon as a whole. So I appreciate you being part of the process, and I hope, you know, we'll look forward to the Oregon Transportation Committee's approval of the ranking and hopefully getting some money out there to do some good work on transportation projects.
Okay, so Kathy, if we could move to the next slide, please.
Hey, this is Vince, just with a comment. Will we get to see how that turned out, I guess, for aviation? Because I can't remember. I know we had a lot and we spent a lot of time, but will we get to see the final report on which the 16 were that were recommended?
Yeah, I think I can give you the I will check with John Bourne over there at OTC, but I would assume they have to put that out for public comment. But to give everybody a heads up, I think the only thing that was different from what we recommended for our ranking on the aviation projects was that the Union County, the LeGrand firefighting thing that was that Betty talked about earlier that didn't make it through the legislation, that got moved up. So that was the only one I think out of order. I'd have to go back and look, but I will ask John Bourne, and I anticipate I will send you the list later on today.
Okay. Yes, and Chair Meeker, that is public now. We can have staff send all the board members the final ranking here shortly of the 21 projects that made the cut line.
Okay.
So we'll be happy to do that.
That would be great. And I would echo Catherine's comment. Just thank you, Martha, for all your work on that. Those are never easy. So
It was an interesting process this time. It was much more, it was much more in discussion, which is why we had to go to 11 hours. The first time I did this, we got everything done in, I think, 4 hours. So interesting process when you do it via Zoom versus in person. Hopefully this goes back to being in person, because it is much easier that way next time around.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to our emergency board request. So the emergency board will be meeting on June 1st through the 3rd. ODAV will be taking 3 items forward for e-board's consideration. And those are a general fund request for $2.5 million to do a reconstruction of the Oak Ridge runway, a $2.5 million general fund request for the Prospect runway reconstruction. And this is this is intended as backup funding if the Connect Oregon request fails. Because right now we put in a request for Connect Oregon funding for this. It is on the recommended list from the final review committee, but it's at the very bottom. And if the Transportation Commission moves other projects up, then this project would drop off of that funding. So this is a backup in case that happens. If it is successful in gaining Connect Oregon funds, then we will withdraw the request. But for right now, we are putting this forward in case it does not get Connect Oregon funding. And then finally, a $400,000 general fund request for the LeGrand fuel storage. Again, this item was the subject of a bill in the 22 session. It passed through the Joint Transportation Committee unanimously. Then as it was en route to Joint Ways and Means Subcommittee on Capital Construction, there was some question about whether the federal infrastructure funding could be used for this. And the committee leadership was given incorrect information that it could and it cannot. Fuel storage is not eligible for either AIP or infrastructure funding. So this is a repair for that bill. So those are what we will be going to the emergency board in June. Are there any questions from board members?
And so Betty, no issue with being able to pull back any particular project if it does get funded in Connect Oregon?
None at all.
Okay. So
Everyone, our legislative fiscal and CFO both understand why we are doing it this way. And we can pull a project off even last minute. So no, there are no issues with this.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Kathy, I cannot see all of the board members, so I don't see any other hands up. If you do, let me know. But I'm going to assume none. Okay, so the LeGrand repair is because there was some uncertainty, some misinformation about what is in the federal infrastructure funding. This is a relatively new funding source that was just approved in late December, and we're just now getting the details on what can and cannot be used for. So sometimes we hear it referred to as the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or IIJA. Our federal funding agency that will be channeling the aviation funds, which is the Federal Aviation Administration, refers to it as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or bill. So that's what we will refer to it as. A 1.2 trillion over 5 years. Out of that, aviation is getting 25 billion, or 5 billion a year for 5 years. Of that 25 billion, 15 billion is set aside for airport infrastructure, 5 billion for terminals, and 5 billion for air traffic control facilities. For Oregon's airports, that means a total of 211 million over the 5-year period. For the commercial service airports, it's a formula that is based on their enplanements. For general aviation airports, it is a fixed amount based on what that airport's classification is. So they're either a national, regional, local, or basic, and the amount that they will get per year ranges from 763,000, which is there's 3 airports that will be receiving that amount. Regionals get 295, locals 159, and basic get 110. So in LeGrand's case, they are, I believe they're at the 159. And it would not have been sufficient even to do the what they need to have done, but it's fueling infrastructure, fueling storage is not eligible for it. So that it can be used for either AIP or PFC eligible capital projects. It cannot be used for operating costs. The FAA plans to start issuing grants in May and June. And then if an airport does not use this year's the fiscal 22 money, it can be carried over into next year. And so for some of our smaller airports, they have the option of being able to roll over those funds for several years to have sufficient funds to do a project. So are there any questions on this? No. Okay, so if we can move on to the next one. So we have a couple of vacancies, and I'm pleased to announce that Governor Brown has appointed Kenji Sugahara and Steve Nagy to our board. Pending Senate confirmation in May, they will be joining the board either after confirmation, or in Steve's case, he'll be joining the board when Vince steps off the board. So Steve is familiar to many of us. He is the Director of Airport Operations for Port of Portland at Portland International. He's also a board member of the Oregon Airport Managers Association. So many of the board members here, we know Steve and are pleased to see that he's going to be joining the board. And Kenji Sugahara is known to some of our board members, but perhaps not to all of you. He's an attorney. He is a drone expert, and he advises both several state agencies and serves on several national committees related to the unmanned aerial systems. He's the co-founder and chief pilot of ACOM Aerials, which does a lot of work in the entertainment industry. He serves on FAA advisory committees, and he's also a former Travel Oregon commissioner. So again, he'll be confirmed by the Senate in May, and will be joining us for the June board meeting. So any questions about any of our 2 newest members? And then we still have, Kenji's replacing Doug. Steve will be replacing Vince. So we will, when Martha's term expires in June, we will have a vacancy for that as well. So if you know of someone that would have an interest and will complement the current board and bring areas of expertise to the board, then please encourage them to apply via the governor's office. So, any questions from board members? Okay, if not, Chair Meeker, if you would like, I'd just like to go ahead and move into legislative concepts, which is the next item on the agenda.
Keep driving.
Okay, so again, we are running a little bit about on schedule. No, it's slightly behind, but so for the upcoming 23 session, we will have 2 pieces of legislation: our budget bill for the 23-25 biennium, because we budget on a 2-year cycle, and then a housekeeping bill. And within that, we would like to correct, we currently have several of our fees are set in statute, which means any changes require 3/5 vote of the legislature to change them. Some of these fees have not been changed in over 25 years. So we would like to take it out of statute and move it into administrative rule. So For example, the airport site approval and licensing fee has not changed in at least 25 years. And the aircraft dealer's licensing fee, we think the same, has not changed in those. And neither of those are revenue, really big revenue generators. They each generate about $5,000 a year for us. And so we would like to take it out of statute, move it into AR, and part of that AR process may be that we'll look at, do we even need to continue charging this fee? And if we do charge it, what's an appropriate fee? So the other one is to give Department of Aviation the same authority that ODOT has to remove hazard trees year round. Currently, we can only remove trees during non-nesting season, which is basically October to April. So we would like to have the ability to remove hazard trees on property that we either own or have a navigation easement on to be able to do that year round. So are there any questions? These are the two legislative concepts that we are proposing.
Pretty straightforward, Betty.
Pretty
Thanks.
straightforward. Okay, if there are no questions, that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, super then. How about we drive into some planning and programming updates? That'd be over to Heather, is that correct?
It is, and I'm just going to share my screen. In a second. Okay. I'm hoping that everybody can see my screen. Yes.
We can see it.
Fantastic. All right. So let's just get started. I wanted to give the board a brief update of our tall structures and land use analysis to date. Obviously, we are very busy with this, and in fact, so busy, we've already hit the mark that we did in the entire year last year. There's been a lot of development. There's a lot of development near airports. There's a lot of houses and commercial buildings and structures going up all over the state. Less energy facilities actually, but more building. And that requires us to perform land use analysis and tall structure reviews from cities and counties that request these reviews be done, and also tall structures within the certain airport layout footprint, if you will. So not only has this been super busy, but I'm not sure if all of you are aware, Seth Thompson, who managed this program for us, his last day was yesterday. So he's moving on to Business Oregon, and at least he's staying with the state. He provided excellent service to our customers and every agency that we coordinate with for all land use and tall tower coordination. In the meantime, I'll be picking up these duties as well as John Wilson regarding crane operations. So to not lose the bubble on these while that job is published. So it might take about a month or two to get filled. But just to let you all know, it's super busy. So we'll be feeling that. But Seth did an amazing job, and he was super to work with. And we wish him the best of luck in his new endeavor at Business Oregon. If you guys have any questions at all during my presentation or after about the coordination that we do for land use reviews around airports and tall structures, please let me know. On the finance side, for admin, I do manage the admin staff that we have in-house, and Roger left, what was it, month before last. And he retired from our agency, and we're filling his position as well. Right now it's being backfilled with Lisa. She's training. And we have Jerry Cheshire in, who's doing the front desk and registration on a temp basis. So none of the administrative duties are being put off at all. This is just a snapshot of the great work that they are doing, and we're getting very caught up, and the admin group is working super hard to stay on all accounts to make sure that we collect past due, that we make sure that the registration fees are collected and in process, and that we're getting Lisa all trained in to perform the accounting technical duties that we need done for paying all of our bills. Looking forward for the admin positions, we're getting ready to do physical inventory, which is due by the end of May. And that will be performed by Lisa, and it does require getting eyes on all of our physical inventory and going around to some of our airports too, and working with ops and planning and Betty to make sure that we get all of the inventory sheets updated. We have a statewide procurement project that is under implementation with all agencies, and they call it Waves. We are in wave 2, and that has been moved to start in June, which we're very happy about because we were supposed to be starting in April, and this is a huge heavy lift for our agency being so small. Currently, the coordinators that work on procurement are myself, Kathy Clark, Andrea Abrahamson, and Kristen Forrest. And we'll be doing most of the heavy lifting to make sure that the statewide procurement projects fully implemented in all of our softwares and the applications that we use to make sure that we follow all of the new requirements of the state. As I was mentioning, we have some planning division recruitments. We will be advertising for the administrative assistant, an accounting coordinator who will be providing assistance to the planning group for mainly grants and accounting, and all coordination with operations, and backfill for admin and the tall towers piece. There's a little backfill for both. And the aviation planner 2 position hopefully should publish next week. Let's see. PMP update. We had a construction safety meeting with the contractors on Wednesday, and we should be getting started right away. We're doing some early coordination with the airports, and going to be working on the agreements with those airports so that we can get on site and start doing crack fill and slurry and get that pavement maintained per our program. I don't have a full update today on the program. I know we have some board members that are a little bit new, and I wanted to get that out to everyone. So I'm looking to do a full update of what the program consists of, how our regions now work, and what services we provide in one of the next 2 upcoming meetings. I'll work with Kathy to make sure it's on the schedule appropriately so that you know what to expect. Capital projects update. We're working on this Let's Bay runway rehabilitation project. Design is underway. We're still similarly where we were at the last time I briefed you all. We're about 25% through design, maybe a little bit more, and it's still very early. Tony will update on the obstruction removal projects. Cottage Grove Airport fencing is complete and 100% done. Independence State Airport is now closer to 40% complete. And then we are currently working on scope and fees for some upcoming projects that Betty talked about and that Tony will brief you on as well. We do have an environmental phase 2 project at Lebanon, which includes LARC survey permit preliminary design for the upcoming taxiway construction and drainage project scheduled for 2024. Master planning projects updates. We just currently closed out Joseph. Thank you very much. And to the team, it was a great project. And I appreciate the board's action today. Aurora State Airport, we did have our second PAC meeting. And we also had a special PAC and public meeting that was called a review meeting, and that was held on April 5th. No new material was presented. It was a review of the material that we had previously distributed at the PAC's request to have an additional meeting to go over all of that material. So where we are with that, we're getting prepared to have the third official PAC meeting. We did receive public comments for all of the material that was received to date. That public comment period ended on the 12th. And we packaged all of those public comments up, as well as a memo to the FAA requesting their review of that those chapters. So that is where we sit. We're currently preparing for an upcoming meeting in May. That will be a facility requirements meeting, and it's pretty heavily technical. It's all technical data. And after that meeting, I plan on in June giving the board a full briefing on the Aurora master plan and where we are, what we've gone through to date in June, and what the next steps are. Catherine has attended the meeting since she started, and that would be your board representative. Since we've talked a little bit about it today, were there any questions that I may be able to answer about that project?
Any questions from the board out there? Heather, I just want to say good work. Overall, you're down 3 staff members on a very tiny staff. So kudos to you keeping the workflow going, and copy all on the extreme staffing shortage you got going right now. Let's hope that we get those filled relatively quickly. And then Catherine, thank you very much for taking John Barcelow's spot to flight follow this. You are by far and away the smartest board member we have on master plans, hands down. So we look forward to you kind of help lead us through this and maintaining the information flow. So thank you very much.
Great.
Okay.
Connect Oregon update. Unfortunately, Vince stepped away, but as Betty mentioned, and you alluded to as well, Chair Meeker, I will be sending out the official list, rankings, and upcoming ODOT public meeting for what they had provided yesterday, and make sure all the board members have it. Obviously, that was completed, and that will be taken to the OTC for theirs. This is a brief picture of the 21 projects that were discussed, and this will be what you are receiving in your packet, because this is what ODOT has put out for public comment. In the top 21, you'll see the projects that Betty had talked about. On the aviation side, we have the Medford East Side heavy duty air apron expansion, the Eugene Airport widening taxiways, the Bend Air Traffic Control Tower, the City of Corvallis Airport runway rehabilitation, Klamath Falls Regional Airport reconstruction, the Hughes County Airport District cargo project, the Creswell Airport runway reconstruction project, and Grant County Regional Airport widening and rehabilitation project, followed by the last airport project, or no, sorry, Prospect State and Union County Airport fueling and maintenance facility improvements to round out the top 21. It was a fantastic meeting. They always are very informative. I'm glad that Betty was able to at least watch the process. It was interesting this year, obviously, to all be on Zoom. And it does change the process up a tiny bit. There's less lobbying offsite during breaks. So I think that that's probably really good. And a big shout out to Chair Meeker for the hard work that and heavy lift that she did in supporting the projects in the final review committee. So thank you very much for that. And that's it. That's my presentation. Are there any questions?
And Kathy, do you see any hands up?
I do not. There's nobody saying, trying to get my attention here. So I think.
Okay, super.
Good.
All right, Heather, thanks and good update. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, so that drives us into a little discussion on our war grants. And I understand that we're going to do a pass through for some money headed to Salem. Is that true, Betty?
We're going to discuss that a little later. Right now, the next thing on the agenda is an update from the Salem Chamber of Commerce on a previous grant that the board had given to Salem under the Roar program.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's who's up next, if they're ready. Brian, are you ready? Brent, I'm sorry, Brent, are you ready?
I am unmuted and ready.
Okay.
Would you be able to allow me to share my screen?
Yes, you should be able to.
Okay.
You did. There you go.
Sweet.
We can see it.
Okay, just trying to get into slideshow mode. Here we go. Don't have to see all that other stuff. There we go. So thank you for the time, and we want to express our appreciation for the grant. It was granted 3 years ago. We're just here for an update and relatively good news. So good morning to the commission, and thank you for the time. My name is Brent D. Hart. I'm the chair of the community committee. With me is Tom Hoffert, the CEO of the Salem Area Chamber, who was awarded the grant last week. At last week's time, we're going to have Zachary Slicky, as you can see from the slide, but Tom Hoffert, the CEO, is able to join us today. So a little background for people who were not there a few years ago, or just refresh people's memories. We were awarded a $500,000 Roar grant in April of 2019. Our task was to go recruit commercial air service back to the Mid-Valley region, and to, frankly, because we had no government or taxation funds, public funds to pay for our recruiting effort. So
Right, your slides aren't advancing.
do you see background or no?
Nope.
Oh.
It's got the little hourglass like it's thinking about it.
Like it's thinking about it. Because I'm looking at the slide.
There you go.
What happened? There?
Yep.
You see the word background?
Yep.
Thank you very much. During the last 3 years, because of some delays, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes, there was one amendment amending the budget because the later phases, we basically robbed the later phases of some funding to help us get through our phase 1 recruitment and commitment from an airline. So we've only had one amendment since it was granted. There was a disconnect, as many of you are familiar with the MRG, the minimum revenue guarantee. which was deemed to be not permissible for this program to fund. Fortunately, we only had $50,000 in our original budget towards the MRG, and that was removed from the plan, and the budget was restructured and got that out prior to the grant being awarded. A little refresher on who we are. We started as a community group, interested business community leaders. Then we were anchored, brought in organizations, Salem Area Chamber of Commerce, Travel Salem, of course, the City of Salem Airport Manager, John Pascal, has been with us every step of the way, and SEDCOR, the Economic Development Corporation of the region. So we're still an ad hoc community collaborative committee, but anchored by 3 of those nonprofits with missions that are aligned with recruiting air service. The Salem Area Chamber was the applicant in the Ward E, and they are managing all of the funds, both the matching funds that have been raised through private fundraising and the grant funds. Later on, when we fund our minimum revenue guarantee, that's going to be managed by Travel Salem, because a lot of that money will go towards marketing and so forth. So Travel Salem is heavily involved as well. And during the interim, in order to take advantage of perhaps further tax deductibility and fundraising and grants, a 501c3 Fly Salem Foundation was formed from members out of our group in order to, for the long term, promote aviation activity and the needs of the Salem Airport McNary Field. For us, I'm not involved. I'm on the board of the foundation, but the foundation's mission, they see it aligned with similar community foundations like the Salem Parks Foundation, the Fire Foundation, the Police Foundation, as the airport is a public asset, a community group, a nonprofit in support of the community asset. All right, so I don't know if we could have picked any worse times, folks, because we got the grant, and by then the 737 MAX issue was hit. So when that got grounded, a lot of the smaller aircraft that we would have sought for our service got sucked up into larger markets because of the lack of available aircraft with all those 737s on the ground. That was 2019, followed by COVID. So that disrupted absolutely everything, as we're all familiar. The pilot shortages, 10,000 pilots were given early retirement, and almost immediately a year later, we're seeing a lot of pilot shortages. So that's a huge concern in terms of what the airlines are able to do right now. So we have 2019, 2020, 2021, all of these things outside our control, impossible to have predicted. And then Ukraine gets invaded by Russia, and the high fuel costs have slowed some of the expansion plans. So be that as may, we continue to carry on and meet with airlines and meet with airline representatives, go to conferences, stay in the conversation, because we know we are seeking a confluence of events and situations. And when the time's right, we want to be on the top of people's minds. And I'm going to move, you can see status of grant funds now. Yes, okay. So I want to let you know what we're doing with the funds and where we are in the expenditures. So every month, a request for reimbursement is issued by the Salem Area Chamber. Matching funds are in a dedicated bank account, not a general fund at the chamber. Those funds were raised through private fundraising. And so we're drawing matching funds from that and getting reimbursed for qualifying expenses. The Department of Aviation holds back 10% until project completion. My but why is my reminder to myself to say, I think that project completion holdback is probably really appropriate for construction projects. I don't know that it is aligned with a recruitment and marketing project, but nonetheless, it's there. But I wanted to bring it up as a bit of a thought, depending on future opportunities for grants. But we're basically holding back money for when we're done, and we're already done marketing and recruiting. So for what it's worth. I beg your pardon, I think that's a 5% holdback. And maybe Heather can confirm that, or Kathy, but it's a 10% match, but I think it's a 5% holdback.
It is a 5% holdback.
Thank you. So sorry about the error on my slide. Balance left to be dispersed is still $326,000 after February's request for reimbursement. So the vast majority of that grant is still available for our project. And the bulk of the project funding that we sought was to advertise new service. So what we've done in that last amendment, we've had to spend more grant money on recruitment and our consultant and going to conferences than we originally budgeted, because we did not anticipate the pandemic. We did not anticipate the pilot shortage. We did not anticipate the war in Ukraine. So phase one has lasted longer. And frankly, it's taking some money we would have used down the line for marketing so that we can keep working with our consultant and keep staying top of mind with the airlines. I anticipate we'll probably need another amendment to stay in phase one for a little while longer, and you'll get the update in just a minute. One bit of good news is we did move 50,000, this was a year ago, from phase 4 to phase 1. The good news is if when we're granted a SCASD grant, we've allowed for that 50,000 to be refilled with SCASD money and to put into phase 4. So we'll be able to use the federal grant, hopefully, and not the ROAR grant money. All right, what are we doing with the taxpayers' money? We've hired and have continually worked with Volair Aviation Consulting. Jack Penning has been a rock star on our behalf. He lives in Portland, so he has a lot of credibility. He has a lot of credibility in the industry to begin with, and great relationships, and he has represented us well. The first contract was a little higher than the second contract, but frankly, he did about a year's worth of work for us for nothing. And now we pay a monthly retainer, which includes a list of services and representations, including the SCASD grant applications. Leakage and retention study was funded through the ROAR grant. We updated the numbers to have a pre-pandemic baseline in 2019, which has served us well in terms of, if you take a ratio of what the pre-pandemic air traffic is now, we can see how close we are to those 2019 numbers. And of course, Volair has been at each of the major conferences and has appeared for our committee and other people, including policymakers, city councilmen, and so forth, and councilwomen for us. So a great deal of that money went to Volair Aviation Consulting, and we'll continue. We're in a contract with them for another 15 months in the current phase. Obviously, we've also spent money sending representatives to conferences. We've been to 6 so far, and in 1 airline headquarters meeting. Our effort has been represented by myself and/or Angie Onyewuchi, the destination marketing organization CEO, and Jack Penning and his colleagues are always at those conferences. Those have gone well, and the conversations have been really fascinating to follow for the last few years. So that's all where we're spending the money, on the consultant and traveling and meeting with airlines. We have no staff. We're not paying any staff. We have no overhead. We're not paying any utilities. We're trying to utilize them as fiscally responsible as possible. Right now, we've gone from educating airlines about where Salem and the Mid-Valley is, because we view this as a Mid-Valley effort. We view this as Corvallis and Polk County, into the Canyon, Woodburn and South, a regional effort or benefit. And it started with, where's Salem? And it's gone, because frankly, some of these airline representatives, they don't know Oregon, and they don't know that we're not Gresham. They don't know that we're leaving in the Mid-Valley 3.5, 4 hours before a flight. So that education process has gone well. They have been attentive. What's been shocking for people, even in our effort and in the airline industry, is we're the largest market west of the Mississippi. In some cases, we're the largest market in the world that doesn't have a nonstop to Los Angeles, or the largest market in the West that doesn't have a nonstop to San Francisco or Phoenix or Las Vegas. So these, basically, there's a community. If there's no communities west in the Mississippi, that don't have all, that are our size or larger, that don't already have service to these communities. So we're next up, and it's, they're learning very well about the economic statistics of the Mid-Valley, the population of the Mid-Valley. Both ratios are growing faster than the Western markets of its peers. And of course, as we're fond of saying, as our community has a little bit of pride, and our capital city is the largest one in the nation that does not have service. The other thing we're communicating with them on, and I mentioned the early departure to PDX, it's just that over time, because we have to answer the question, well, why not PDX? But over time, there's more traffic. People are getting up either at 2 or 3 in the morning, or they're spending a night before in Portland. Parking is going up, hotel rates are going up, traffic and time is more and more valuable. So for the market, we have seen a shift of people in our market from 2017 to 2019 start to go to Eugene, even though the price point is not more beneficial because of the pain point of PDX, which I love PDX. I mean, it's a great airport, but for the Mid-Valley, for a number of them, there's going to be a better option for them with a local market. So that's how the education process has gone. In February, Angie was at Routes America's conference and was greeted when she sat down in these speed dating tables. Wow, you guys everyone's talking about Salem here. And in an era where all the major legacy airlines are canceling routes, even profitable routes, because of lack of resources and pilots and aircraft and so forth, for people to be talking about, hey, Salem, everyone here is talking about Salem. Everybody wants to talk about Salem. It's frankly, it's a good feeling after a few years. These are the airlines we've met with in the interim, some of them many times, and all of them at least are familiar with us. And we're on their radar, and I won't take your committee time today to give you an update on the conversations with each of them. And now to get to the good news and why we're here today. What we've seen is a growth in the ULCC airline segment, the ultra low cost carriers. All of them who are in this segment have asked for additional information. Salem have gone somewhere from we really want to keep track of you, we're looking for dots on a map to fly, to having committed to the TSA and saying, hey, we're coming. We also received 2 letters in support of our SCASD grant, something we have not had before. And frankly, it gives us exceedingly high confidence that we'll be awarded an $850,000 grant in June-ish, probably, depending on their timeline. Most every grant award from the last cycle had a letter of support from airlines. This time, almost nobody has a letter of support because United, Delta, American, they're not expanding. They're not writing these letters. So we're going to be one of the very few regions and fields that is going to have airline support letters, and we have 2 of them. TSA is in process right now, working with John Pascal to make sure that all the needs are ready and the equipment is secured and how they're going to staff to provide screening at the airport. We want to thank Senator Wyden's office for jumping in and saying this is going to be good for Oregon's capital, it's going to be good for the region, and getting a letter signed by Senator Wyden himself, Senator Merkley, and Representative Schrader, all encouraging the TSA to expedite this and get us done. Some money was secured through the efforts of a state legislator. We have over $500,000 for ground service equipment for anything we might need that we don't currently have on the field. This was awarded to the city of Salem for the Salem airport to secure baggage handling equipment, de-icing equipment, aircraft moving equipment, those kinds of things. So that money is in place and on its way. So the airport's in great shape. We appreciate finally getting a little bit more political support and awareness from our county commissioners, our city councilors, and of course, both sides of the aisle at the state legislature. Senator Deb Patterson represents the area. She's supportive, and Raquel Moore Green, the representative in the area, is also supportive. So looking forward, we anticipate 2 carriers starting service. One's pushed back a little bit because of the high cost of fuel. At $100 a barrel, that's going to be a challenge for them to start a new service, and they're looking at the first quarter of next year. But we still anticipate 1 carrier will start service this year. And hopefully, from what we are hearing, we would like to think we're going to be serving 4 destinations in our top 4 destinations based on the research in the leakage study in the next 2 to 3 years. And that would be nonstops from the Mid-Valley to the San Francisco Bay Area, the LA Basin, Las Vegas, and Phoenix, but not in that order. And of course, these would be served by low-cost carriers, which has been very important to some of the community members in our region that have friends and family, especially Latin and Hispanic communities that have a lot of family in California. I know our city councilor, Jose Gonzalez, has expressed his desire to have affordable service to areas where people can visit family and friends. So really good news. I'm glad I'm finally in front of you with, hey, we're good. Because we've been working behind the scenes and somewhat quietly for a long time. And so it's nice to be out in public and saying, this is what it's come to. As I mentioned, we have had to change our priorities from major carrier, major hub has been our mantra. Connecting the Mid-Valley to the world with one stop. We know that there has been upwards. Was that a question? I'm sorry. We know there's been as many as like 100 destinations that you can connect to if you get a nonstop to San Francisco or to Denver or to Seattle. It will continue to be our long-term effort, but realistically, with the situation with the pilots and so forth, that's going to be 2 to 4 years away. And we can get service now with ultra low cost carriers. And I think it's going to be a great benefit, and it's going to show and prove the viability of our marketplace, which will make it easier for the Alaska, United, American airlines to consider us in the years to come. Spirit and Frontier, we heard at a conference, they've announced they're going to double in size in 5 years. Breeze, Avelo, and AHA are new to the market in the West Coast. So they are new. Another company called Airbon wants to launch a network out of Southern California. This market segment is really growing, and that we think in America, they believe that in America, that's where the market growth will occur. I guess they said from the podium that in Europe, the low-cost carriers have about 50% of the market. In America, it's closer to 30% of the market. So the growth in aviation in America might be in this category. So right now, our immediate next 24 months, secure nonstop service to 4 destinations that are the top destinations where people fly from the Mid-Valley, being those 4. And then we'll see where the carriers and the conditions carry us from there. Hopefully, we won't have any unforeseen pandemics or market disruptions. That is as brief as I could make it. I appreciate the time. I was wondering if you had any questions.
Brent, that's good news, and kudos to y'all for pivoting. Successful initiatives often go what they have to do to get to the end line. So yeah, appreciate the focus on the low-cost carriers, and it still amazes me that Salem, being the capital city it is and as big as it is, does not have air service. So kudos to you for giving us some hope on the horizon.
Thank you, Chair. We count, our consultant counts nearly 600,000 people in the Mid-Valley in the catchment area, which is conservative because we do think we will draw service flyers from the coast. We think we'll draw from McMinnville a little bit. We may draw from Wilsonville South, and we're not including any of those 600,000 people. Definitely a huge market in Oregon, the largest market outside the red zone.
Well, good news, and thank you very much, and keep pushing.
Thank you. We shall.
Okay, so that brings us to, we could do an early lunch break, or we could drive in and let Kristen give us a little bit on the finance. Your thoughts, anybody? Is anybody opposed to continue to drive on from the board?
I'd like to keep going because I've got to catch a flight in a little bit and I hopefully can stay for the whole meeting.
Copy that. All right, let's drive then.
Okay, I guess that is to me then. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Okay, great. Okay, so I am going to talk to you today about the KPM process, the board best practice survey, and then we are going to do a vote on House Bill 5204, the transferring or the pass-through of funds. So for our KPMs, the board wanted us to talk about KPMs today. So those are the key performance measures. So every state agency is required by statute to report on your key performance measures, and then they become part of our annual performance progress report. And this is part of the budget process, and so it follows budget timelines. And every fall we score our KPMs, and then I complete the report, and the board completes the survey at that time, and then I present all the results every fall of every year to the board. And so that report is submitted annually to the Legislative Fiscal Office, also the Chief Financial Office, and then it becomes part of our budget. And so the reason we're talking about these today is because the deadline for us to make any changes to these is April 29th of this year. So every 2 years, we have a small window where we can make changes to our KPMs. And those, if we have any changes, they have to go through the Chief Financial Office, the Legislative Fiscal Office, and then they need legislative approval. And then of course the board approval as well. So there's a lot of approvals we need to get if we want to make any changes. The last time we made changes to these were in 2017. So what we did at that time is we deleted the pilot registration KPM because of course we deleted pilot registration. And so what I wanted to do today is I wanted to go over our KPMs and not necessarily the results of those because that's what I do in the fall, but I just wanted to go over what each KPM is measuring, and that way we can have a discussion and the board could give feedback if they want any of those changes, anything added or changed, or any of them deleted. So the first one is the percent of runways in good or better condition. So this is really measuring how the PMP program is doing. So how we measure this is we collect data based on the PCI, which is the Pavement Condition Index. And we're looking at all paved public use airports in Oregon when we're measuring this one. And so we look at the PCI scale and we measure the percentage of runways that are meeting that index on the scale of good or better. The next KPM number 2 is the percent of runways meeting or exceeding approach surface standards. So this one is really measuring how well Oregon airports are keeping the runways obstruction free. And so what we look at this one is we're measuring it based on the FAA Part 77.25 standards, which require the 20:1 glide slope ratio. And so this is looking at all public use airports as well. So we're not just looking at our state-owned airports, but the whole system of Oregon as a whole. And we're looking at what percentage of these runways are meeting this standard. Now, the third KPM is the number of public use airport inspections conducted, and this is by our agency. So what this is looking at is the number in the past year of airport inspections that our agency has conducted, and it's comparing it to the number of possible inspections. So this is including the FAA 5010 inspections that the department conducts. So we do these, there's 97 of them, and then we do them on a 3-year basis, so a third of those each year. And then we also do quarterly self-inspections at the 21 state-owned airports. So this one is really measuring how well our airports operation division is doing getting those inspections done. Now, the fourth KPM is the percent of federal funds available that are obligated or spent. So this one's really measuring how well we're managing our federal funds. So the agency receives $150,000 per year for each NIPIAS airport that we have, and those are NPE funds. So those are non-primary entitlement funds. And so then the agency is in charge of transferring those, saving those up for large projects, managing those projects, and just making sure that we're managing those funds and spending all the funds available. So if we don't use all of the funds, they could be sent back to the FAA for discretionary dollars. They could even be sent out of state. So this one is really important for us to get that 100% mark, so we're not, losing any money to other states. The fifth KPM, we actually can't change this one because this one is required for us to measure our customer service, but I still wanted to discuss it. So we actually have specific questions that we're required to ask just to see how we're doing on our customer service. So it looks at our accuracy, our availability of information, our expertise, helpfulness, and then our overall customer service. And we measure this with a survey monkey that we send out to all of our stakeholders, customers, airport managers, really anybody who signs up to be on our list that interacts with us. The sixth KPM is the percent of aircraft registered. So this one is really looking at how well we're doing on collecting that aircraft registration revenue. And this revenue for the agency, we use that to fund our FAA grant match. So this is a very important revenue source for the agency. The seventh KPM is the one the board members are most familiar with. This is the percent of best practices met by the board. So this one is based on the survey that I send out to the board every fall. And this is another one that is required, and we actually can't change this, but I still wanted to go over it with the board so that especially the new board members are familiar with this process. So the questions that we have, there's 15 questions in this survey, and these were developed by DAS and LFO. And these are based on the best management practices for boards and commissions. So every state agency that has boards is required to ask these specific questions. And so they base it on the 5 main functions of boards. So those are listed here. So the executive director selection, expectations and feedback, strategic management, strategic policy development, fiscal oversight, and board management. And so, as I said, DAS and LFO came up with the scorecard and the questions. I'll show you what the questions are. For new board members, I will send out this survey every fall. And when you get it, you can always contact me if you have any questions about it. And I'll remind you again before I send that out. But the questions, they really are about the director's expectations and feedback, about what the board is reviewing and is involved in, such as finances, budget, key communications, how board members act and coordinate and attend trainings, and then that they review the board best practices, which is basically what we're doing now. And that's actually the last KPM. So I will open that up for any discussions for the board. If you have any questions about the KPMs, or if there's anything you think is missing or you want to add to any of those.
Just quick, when will we update this doesn't really talk about changing the KPMs. I'm pretty comfortable with them. I'm used to them, but when will we have the newest, freshest set of data? Is that September?
Yes. Yeah, I enter that in September. And that's when I ask, I send you the survey, and then I enter all of the new data, and then I'll present that at the next board meeting after that in the fall.
Okay, and just a note, it doesn't really have to do with KPMs, other than we do need to think about as a board with our new board members, we need to put our strategic planning conference on the calendar agenda. And that needs to come in after we've got data that we can look at. So we'll talk about that maybe towards the end. And Catherine, I see you have a question.
Yes, I just had a question about the airport inspections. I know in the past you've relied on volunteers, especially for some of the remote airports, to do those inspections. Is that still happening, or are you still looking for volunteers to do that?
Yeah, that is still happening. So most of our airports, it's actually our operations staff that's doing those reports. But I know Oahe is one of the airports that is, it's only accessible by aircraft. And since we don't have an aircraft, we do rely on volunteers to help us with that one.
Okay, anyone else with a question? All right, super, Kristen, thanks. And we look forward to more discussion on that coming up. But I think for right now, the board is comfortable with the KPMs we have from what I see.
Okay.
So I appreciate the brief.
Okay, great. And then I do have one more item for the board. So I have a vote for us. So this is the background of why we're voting. So according to statute, the board has to authorize the agency and the director if we're receiving any money, dispersing, expending any money for airports and aviation facilities in the state. And so that is what we're doing. So House Bill 5202, Betty talked about this a little bit. It passed in the 22 regular session. It was signed by the governor April 4th. And it was a large House bill. We're just going to vote on 2 sections of it. So the first is section 457. So in this section, it was appropriated to the department to receive out of the general fund $540,388 for the distribution to the city of Salem for the Salem Municipal Airport upgrade. And then in section 458, it was appropriated to the department out of the general fund $750,000 to distribute to Josephine County for a Jet A and avgas aircraft fueling system at the Illinois Valley Airport. And then I just wanted to mention, typically when the department receives funds, it's for the state-owned airports or it's for grants that we're expending. But this was a different situation here where these funds were receiving, we're actually not going to be involved in managing them or managing the projects. So we're simply passing through the money to these to the city of Salem and Josephine County. But of course, we still have to get the board vote to receive the money and to pass it through. So that leads us to the board vote here.
Okay, super. I am always willing to take money from the legislation and pass it along to our well-deserved aviation entities out there in the state of Oregon. So with that, could I get a first motion for the State Aviation Board to approve the Oregon Department of Aviation to receive and pass through general funds in the amount of $540,388 to the city of Salem and for $750,000 to Josephine County in accordance with House Bill 5202 and the 2022 regular session. Do I have a first motion?
So moved.
We have a first motion by Catherine. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mike. All in favor of the motion as presented, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Hearing no opposition, the motion has passed unanimously. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will stop sharing now because.
Okay, and while we still, we got Catherine here, we just might as well continue to drive everything that we need a vote for. So for the next 3, we need to have the adoption of rules for the long-term leases, approval of Soar Projects, and approval to receive and expend funds for Cape Blanco State Airport, all 3 of which have been brought to us before. So I think this will go relatively quickly. So Tony, if you could drive us into the adoption of rules for the long-term lease.
Chair Meeker, before he does that, can we have Tony just do his quick operations update, item number 11?
Real quick, Catherine, how long will we have you?
Okay.
I think I'm good. I think I have about 45 minutes.
Okay, we need Catherine for the vote. Betty, I'd prefer we just drive.
Okay.
All right, so let's get to the votes. Tony, if you could do the long-term leases.
Okay. I'll jump into the leases and then I'll do my operations update here at the end. Okay, can you all see my screen? I've got a staff report for the lease update.
We do.
Okay, so like Chair Meeker mentioned, this was brought to the board in February. In just a quick background on this, in the 2021 legislative session, House Bill 2434 was passed, which allowed the Department of Aviation to increase our maximum lease period for commercial aeronautical leases to a maximum of 50 years. And in September 21, we initiated a temporary rulemaking to extend our lease terms from 30 years to 50 years for commercial leases. And in February of 22 of this year, the board authorized the Department of Aviation to initiate a permanent rulemaking, again, extending the lease term to 50 years. So we have done that. We initiated that rulemaking. The Department of Aviation filed notice of the proposed rules on February 28th with ODOT and opened a public comment period from March 1st to March 21st. And with the final rule as amended, and that was attached in the packet for this meeting. We did not receive any comments during the public comment period. So at this time, staff recommends the adoption of the final rules with amendments to Administrative Rule 738-015-0020, sections 3 and 4, as presented in the final rule. And so here's that request to adopt the final rule.
Okay, this should be pretty easy. Before we go into a motion, do we have any questions about what Tony is asking? Okay, seeing no hands, do I have a motion for the board to adopt the final rules with amendments to OAR 738-015-0020, sections 3 and 4 as Tony presented?
Motion.
Okay, I have a first motion by, I think, Catherine. Second motion?
Second.
Hilda, is that you?
Yep.
Okay, we have a second motion by Hilda then. All those in favor of passing the motion as presented, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, hearing no opposition, the motion has been approved unanimously. Thank you very much, Tony. So now on to the SOAR projects.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Okay, so I want to give an overview of the SOAR program, previous cycles, and I'll try to make it fairly brief. I want to talk about cycles 1 through 3, the previous cycles, and then the projects that we completed, some of the overages in cycle 2, and then the projects that we've carried forward that have not been completed. I'm going to talk about our carry forward project overall need, and then our new requests for this cycle, cycle 4. I'm also going to talk about our prioritization, and then the ARC meeting that we had 2 weeks ago, and then I'll ask for your approval on our cycle 4 requests. So cycle 1 was, these projects were completed, and then and if I'm going too fast, just let me know and I'm happy to go back or explain anything in more detail. The cycle 2 projects, we had 4 projects completed. We did have 3 projects that went over the initial estimate amount, and so we're just bringing these for your attention. And then we had 2 projects that we had to carry forward. That was the runway reconstruction at Prospect, and then the Malino water fire suppression line. So the carry forward projects amounted to $2.4 million. And again, those projects have been carried forward, they're not completed. In cycle 3, we completed some projects, the Cottage Grove fuel tank replacement and point of sale, and the Joseph point of sale. We also completed the property acquisition at Pacific City, but shortly after cycle 3 projects were approved by the board in February 2020, we had discussed our pause on cycle 3 projects in June of 2020. So we do have a carry forward for most of the cycle 3 projects because again, most of them were not completed. And that's what this looks like. So 3.1, almost $3.2 million in cycles 2 and 3 projects that we've carried forward. And I'm going to come back to this slide with some more information on our balance and projected revenues here in a minute. This is our request, cycle 4 SOAR request. This is what we're asking for today from the board. And our only new project is for our Cape Blanco runway and electrical system rehabilitation. This is for the matching portion of what was our Connect Oregon request for the overall project, that it was $3.8 million. Out of that, $1.2 million was going to be our match, and that's what we're asking for here in SOAR right now. And I'm going to get to, in my next presentation, is an ask to accept and expend funds from the recent legislative session from House Bill 5202. So those funds have been appropriated to this project outside of Connect Oregon. And so we're looking to make up the difference for that $1.2 million from SOAR, so we can get that project completed. Design will begin immediately, and we anticipate construction on this project in a very late 22 or early 2023 as weather allows. I included the criteria for SOAR projects in the packet, and in the interest of time, if you have any questions on this, I'm happy to explain, but I'm going to just go through the scope and the cost estimate that we included in the packet as well. So this project will rehabilitate the runway pavement in its existing configuration, full width and full length. And it will also replace the non-functioning electrical system, including a new electrical building, new regulators, new runway edge lighting, PAPIs, runway end lights, and so on. A beacon is also included in the wind cone. So that's what this project will do. And again, the total project cost is $3.8 million. Almost $2.6 million is funded through House Bill 5202. And so we are looking for the remaining $1.2 million for SOAR so that we can construct this. Any questions on Cape Blanco?
Let me open it up to the board. Any questions on Cape Blanco? Looks to be, we had a great project. We had $2 million from the legislation. Now they're looking for $1 million from us. So anything from the board? And just for everybody, Vince is back. So welcome back, Vince.
Okay, great. So moving on, in cycle 3, Pacific City, we had a grant, a SOAR grant for property acquisition, ramp paving, and drainage improvements. We are looking to, in this cycle, I'm looking to amend the scope of that project to include the access road paving in the property that we have acquired in 2020 at Pacific City. So that property acquisition was completed in 2020 for $176,000, leaving $253 previously approved in cycle 3 for, again, the ramp paving and drainage improvements. But we are looking to pave an access road and complete the apron paving. And our recent estimate was $300,000 for that work. We did apply for a Connect Oregon grant for $204,000. So our SOAR match would be $96,000, which again would come from the $253 previously approved. So again, this request is just to include an access road into the scope of that project. And if Connect Oregon funds were awarded, and if the board approves, then we would begin construction on that road and the apron paving in 23. So again, the criteria for SOAR projects, listed that out for this project. And I have the scope here for this project. This is the property that we, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but the property is along Rupel Avenue, where you can see the the kind of reddish color road, and then a yellow parking lot that we're looking to include, as well as the blue portion is the existing apron, which we would repave. So again, the overall project cost $300,000 and contingent on available funds or the award of Connect Oregon funds, then we would use the $96,000 match for this project. Are there any questions on Pacific City?
Real quick, Tony, I don't think this project made the Connect Oregon. It's not going to be. It's way far down on the ranking list. So, but no problems going forward with the road itself without the Connect Oregon matching funds, correct?
Correct. I'd still like to get the scope amended with the access road so that if funds were available, we could go ahead and proceed with this project, regardless of Connect Oregon funding, as funds are available. And because of our meeting change, this presentation was put together before that final review committee. But I understand that the overall status of projects may potentially still change in May when the Transportation Commission makes their final approval.
Vince?
Yeah, I guess just a question, because it did rank so low. I mean, I think this was like the lowest ranked project of all the ones that were submitted. And I mean, it's just process question that would you not take the money that was available and would you still spend it here? Or does it make sense to reallocate it to a different state-owned airport versus spending it here?
Sure. So I think there may have been one project that was ranked a little bit lower, but okay. I don't know why. When we're talking about connections and modal connections, this project literally connects the airport to its community. Right now, this airport does not have paved access for vehicles or airport users to access the airport. Anyone, whether it's a vehicle or pedestrian, they are having to go through private property and to get to the apron and access the airport. So we are looking to establish, for safety reasons and for continuity of operation for the airport, a paved road so that ambulances, for medevac operations, for Coast Guard, and just for regular airport users to be able to access the airport. So in my opinion, it's an important project that we are still very much interested in completing. And so I think we're going to continue utilizing the same funds that were approved in the Cycle 3 SOAR grant for this project. Does that answer your question?
Well, sort of. I understand the need for it. Is it being put up against the rest of the needs of the other state-owned airports in where their requests, I guess what their requests are? I mean, I understand the desire, but is this the highest ranked request from any state-owned airport to be used?
Sure. And I'm going to get into priorities for our other SOAR projects here after I get through the next Cycle 4 request. So I'm going to talk about our carry forward projects in a little more detail and kind of explain staff's recommendation where those fall.
Okay.
Sure.
And Tony, I do think there is a little bit of a difference between SOAR and Connect Oregon. Connect Oregon has a different grading scheme. For our SOAR projects, we have not ever, put in the business, it has to be what percentage jobs does it bring? It's a different criteria that we've used for SOAR. And if I'm correct, this project was actually approved by the board in a previous SOAR cycle, correct?
Correct. Yeah, the property acquisition, because again, there was no state-owned property that connected to the public right-of-way to get to the airport. Any airport user or member of the community would have to go through private property, and so property acquisition was included, and we did that $176,000 in 2020 to acquire 2 parcels so that we could provide an access road that connects to the public right away.
Okay, so I you know what, I am confused. So the road's new. We got the property, what was it, was in 2020, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so any other questions on Pacific City? Okay. Oop. Okay, so now my final request for cycle 4 is a cost amendment. In cycle 3, we had an approved project for the Toledo apron reconstruction for $80,000, and we have completed design on that project, which has cost $27,000 to date. And I'm not sure that all of those costs have been submitted yet on design. So there's $52,000 remaining. However, our estimate to construct is $307,000. This is a full reconstruction. And that was a recent estimate in March of this year. So so I'm asking for a cost amendment to allow $307,000 so that we can construct this project this summer of 22. And then again, the criteria for Soar Projects, this is the same scope and criteria from the cycle 3 request. Again, just changing the amount from $80,000 to $307,000. And I've included the exhibit, the 90% design plans for this project, which would fully reconstruct the apron and parts of the connecting taxiways, a taxi lane connector for 2 hangars on the I want to say that's the south end, and then the access road, which in the winter months is currently very muddy and difficult to traverse.
Tony, can I ask how this project was so grossly underfunded? You know, why we thought it cost $80,000 in 2020 and now we think it costs $300,000?
You know, I don't know. That request was made before I joined the department, and I don't exactly know where $80,000 came from. But in all of my time with the department, and talking about this project with our engineers, designing it, it was clear that this project was going to exceed that $80,000 pretty quickly.
Okay, I would ask that the staff take a look at this because that's a gross miscalculation. Let's make sure we find out where the error was so we don't do it again.
Definitely. Okay. So here again, the cost estimate for this project as provided by our engineers. Any questions on Toledo? Okay. So here's the prioritization that I mentioned. This is what staff is prioritizing. Right now, our main priority is safe and operational runways. So that includes the Cape Blanco runway and electrical rehab for $1.2 million. And then utilizing the carry forward project from cycle 2 for the Prospect runway reconstruction. There was $2 million in that project, and if awarded Connect Oregon funds, then we would be using $800,000 to complete that project as well. And then the remaining Connect Oregon match, again, still kind of waiting to hear how the final approval of Connect Oregon goes in May. But we were anticipating using $340,000 for Soar to match the $722,000 we requested in Connect Oregon for the Malino waterline project, and then $96,000 in Soar for the $204,000 requested in Connect Oregon for Pacific City.
Tony, I gotta admit, I'm a little bit confused here because we're voting on things. The Malino water is not going to happen. And the Pacific City is not going to happen for Connect Oregon. I understand that it's not final yet, and that, you know, lightning could strike. I understand that, but 99% sure that those 2 projects are not going to get funded in any way by Connect Oregon. So I'm having a hard time voting on this right now. Can we push this SOAR prioritization to after we know the Connect Oregon?
Sure. And so the prioritization, this is just kind of just information sharing. What I'm trying to do is provide a more of a comprehensive update on the SOAR program since cycle 1 through to cycle 4. So my request to the board is the 3 projects that I just discussed for cycle 4 only. The prioritization, this is our staff's priorities and what we plan to do with the SOAR funds. Again, considering the $3.6 million in carry forward that we have, and then the funds that we have on hand, which I'm going to get to here in just a second.
Okay.
So I may answer your question.
Okay. And then also, we haven't been given any other projects to look at. So I don't know what is not going to be done if we prioritize with this. So it's kind of, I don't think the board is ready to vote on this.
Okay. Well, bear with me for just another couple slides, and I may answer your question, and then I'd be happy to answer any of the questions you have. So again, these are the priorities that we have because we're looking to maintain our airports in a safe and operational manner, and that job 1 is for the runways that are at their end of life, and that's at Cape Blanca and Prospect. And then, and I agree now after the final ranking, the chances of getting the Connect Oregon funds are low for these 2 projects, but as a priority for us, leveraging those Connect Oregon funds, that remains a priority so that we can make the most use out of our SOAR dollars that we have. And then finally for Toledo, getting that apron reconstructed, because it is basically no longer an apron. In portions, it is straight mud, grass, and other areas it's just gravel, and so that apron is a priority for us because we need to repave that. Okay, so here's the carry forward that I mentioned earlier. For cycles 2 and 3, we had almost $3.2 million that we carried forward, and for cycle 2, that was the Prospect runway and then the Malino waterline improvements. Then for cycles 3, that was these projects I have listed down here. So that would be the drainage improvements at Pacific City, at Cape Blanco. There's an airport layout plan, a planning update, and obstruction removal. And then we had a Cascade Locks obstruction removal, an ALP update, and a pilot lounge. And then capital equipment, this was the mower for Joseph. Right now, our latest cash balance on hand is just over $2.1 million, and we're projecting about $1.5 million in revenue through December of 23. So the projected balance and revenue would be almost $3.7 million. And again, and I have an asterisk here for the contingency of Connect Oregon funds, but if the Connect Oregon funds were awarded, then our SOAR, for the priorities that I mentioned in the previous slide, our SOAR amounts would be $2.7 million. I realize that some of those SOAR projects are not likely to be funded, so that's about $1 million just between Malino and Pacific City that we would have to make up the difference, and then we would be completely spent on SOAR funds. So to make that, to put it in a little simpler terms, if the projects do not receive Connect Oregon funds, then they will still remain a priority, but they're going to have to be carried forward until funds are available. Okay, so does that help put things into perspective, or what I'm asking for and talking about here?
Yeah, if Malino and Pacific City doesn't get funded, what else in the state system are you going to look at doing? There's got to be other projects.
And there are. So here from the remaining projects that are carried forward from cycle 2 and cycle 3, we have the drainage improvements at Pacific City. We have the airport layout plans for Cape Blanco and Cascade Locks, as well as obstruction removal and a pilot lounge at Cascade Locks, and then the tractor at Joseph. However, these the projects that we applied for Connect Oregon, those still remain a higher priority for staff.
So so we're gonna have about $3.1 million. You're gonna spend about 1.7 of that. Because you're not gonna get funding from Malino and Pacific City. So you have a priority list for the 1.7, Cape Blanco, Prospect, and Toledo. So then we need as a board to find out what the desire is to spend that remaining 1 million that we haven't got fragged because Malino and Pacific City fell out. I got it, they're still your priority, but let's not have $1 million in the bank just waiting unless we got a plan for it later on.
Okay.
So I think, and I may be missing it, let me open up the rest of the board. For me, I would like at the next board meeting to have a list of what the state is looking to do at our various airports. And, we agree, Cape Blanco, I mean, the legislators gave us $2 million. We got to give them the match. That's an agreement we have to live up to. Prospect, same thing, we'll have to live up to the match given to us if Connect Oregon goes through. So those two, I got it, they're a priority, but we need to take a look at other projects and what you want us to prioritize, and so we can have a discussion. Right now, I don't know if I have visibility on the rest of the projects that are kind of be thought about at the state.
Okay.
Various state airports.
Sure, and that I'd be happy to kind of compile those projects, and then we can discuss more broadly what would we prioritize and what we should do with the remaining funds if we're not going to have Pacific City and Malino funded.
I mean,
Tony, if I could jump in for a second. So Martha, when I do the math, Cape Blanco at 1.2, Prospect at 8, and Toledo, that gives me 3.7 million. We have 3 million available. That's not going to give us a whole lot left to address these cycle 2 and 3 carryovers, get
Okay.
those done. I think Tony's going to make the ask here in a moment for which ones we're going to ask you to approve for now. But right now we want to try to do Cape Blanco, Prospect, Toledo, and then if there's remainder funds to do the carryovers. Tony, did I get that right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So right now, we're being asked to do a vote for funding 3 projects, but even then we can't do it. Prospect may not need it because if they don't make the Connect Oregon final cut, we can't vote on this till after the Connect Oregon is finalized.
Okay, so the vote for Pacific City is to just add the road to the scope of the project that was previously approved in cycle 3. And then the request for Toledo is to increase the cost or the amount of funds awarded from 80,000 to 307,000. Well, it's a new request for $307,000 to fund the construction of that project that we have designed and are ready to go out to bid here this spring. So that's what we're requesting. Were the 3 projects that I shared for the cycle 4 ask. And then everything else is just kind of a broad overview of the SOAR program, the funds available, and then our projects that were carried forward from cycles 2 and 3.
Okay, Catherine, I see your hand, but I just want to go again because I'm muddled in my own head.
Yeah, sorry, I'm in a really loud location now, so I put my question in the chat in case we get interrupted, but I'm basically wondering, so if the projects in the priority list don't get funded through Connect Oregon, are they still going to be the priority over those on the carry forward list?
And that's really what I was trying to explain with this slide here. For these are the projects that are our priority, and even for the 2 that are not likely to receive Connect Oregon funds, they remain our priority, and that they would be carried forward and funded when funds are available.
So Tony, here's my issue. Let's say that Magic does strike and Malino and Pacific both get funded by Connect Oregon, then you don't have the money to do Toledo. I just don't know how we vote on this until we get clarity from Connect Oregon.
So we would, the total, if they were approved, then the total comes out to $2.7 million. And then our projected balance and with revenue through 23 is 3.6 million. So we would have funds for all of them.
Okay, so for clarity again, you're asking us to vote funds for Cape Blanco, Prospect, both, and Prospect would be only contingent upon if it gets approved in Connect Oregon. And it's kind of down by the cut line. I don't know why we're having this discussion about Prospect until we know for sure. Do we have to have this vote right now?
Okay, so I apologize for the confusion. There is no request for Prospect or Malino right now. Prospect and Malino, those funds are already approved from cycle 2 for up to $2.4 million. And so those approved projects would already cover the need for the SOAR match if Connect Oregon were to fund those. So there's no request for those two, and I apologize for the confusion, including those here. But our ask is for $307,000 to construct Toledo, the apron, and then to just add the road to the scope for the already approved Pacific City project from cycle 3, and then the new request for $1.2 million in this cycle for Cape Blanco.
Okay, so Pacific City is not, that 96,000 that you want us to vote for is in no way connected to Connect Oregon, even though it is asterisk that it is.
Well, it's that as a contingent or as a priority for the projects that we would fund. That's just the amount that that we would be funding if it were awarded Connect Oregon funds.
Okay,
that $96,000.
You're just confusing the hell out of me.
Okay.
Every Connect Oregon dollar needs to be shoved aside. We don't have clarity on Connect Oregon. I am not voting today on any project connected to Connect Oregon. Copy?
Yes.
Okay. Projects not connected to Connect Oregon, as I see on your slide, is Toledo and Cape Blanco.
Correct.
That's it.
Correct.
So you're asking us to vote on the Cape Blanco and the Toledo dollars at this point, and then you may come back in the next session to continue this discussion on SOAR dollars.
Correct. And that is correct. And then regardless of Connect Oregon, we still would like to have the access road included in the scope for the project. The 90s.
Talk about that after the Connect Oregon.
Sure.
Okay. 2 projects you're asking for then at this time, Cape Blanco and Toledo.
Okay. Yes. Any other questions on that before I move on?
Okay. Let me open it up to the board.
I'm sort of with you, Martha. I've been a little confused here, and I think I'm hopeful that you have simplified it down to just those. I think it would be good to come back to this because I feel like these are a little bit out of context. I can't remember what we did in SOAR. There's been so many damn grant programs lately. My head's just trying to remember everything of all these different programs, and so I feel like I'm looking at Malino and Pacific City, and unfairly, right? I admit, grading them under a Connect Oregon program. And so being able to see all of the SOAR projects, and we probably need a recap of where this program is, completely separate from every other grant program, because others may have it, but I'm getting lost myself. So just trying to really simplify this into what the specifics that we need to do today, I think is the right call, Martha.
Yeah, agree, Vince.
100% agree with you guys.
And copy that, Mike. Catherine?
Yeah, I was just gonna agree with all of you. I think we just need a full recap. And I know, priorities change and projects shift around, and that's natural. So it would just be good to kind of see the big picture to know exactly what we're doing.
Okay. So Tony and Betty, let me ask you, if we do not vote on Cape Blanco and Toledo, does anything bad happen?
Well, for Cape Blanco, remember that is state funding.
I want to know, can we push it to June?
It just means we delay design and it delays construction and we push construction back if we delay 2 more months in accepting or receiving the Cape Blanco funds, that means we can't start design.
Okay, what about Toledo?
And for Toledo,
yeah,
that project is fully designed. It's ready to go out for bid. We were hoping to get bids out right away so that we could get competitive prices from eager contractors, given the kind of current status of the industry. So that would delay us awarding a contract and constructing to later in the season and possibly having higher bid prices.
We were trying to build this summer.
Okay.
And if we wait to June for the board approval, getting a contractor availability is an issue, and then getting it done this summer would be an issue.
Okay. Now, personally, the Cape Blanco thing, that's an easy kill. The legislator gave us 2 million. We're going to follow the legislative, lead here and do the match that we promised.
Okay.
Heather, I think you got something to add in.
I do. I just want to provide a little bit of background and help out a tiny bit since Tony is new. This program is not necessarily a grant program, but it is the state agency monies. But it does have to go through third-party review through through the same group who does the core review for you all. Tony was not aware of that. And so the updates on this project and these projects were taken to that group too, to get their review of it. And he wasn't aware that there was that process. So this is coming to you quickly because there was it was dropped off, if you will. And I kind of want to let you know that. We should give you all a review of the SOAR program. Tony should provide you the complete list of all the SOAR projects, their approvals in the past, but I think he was just trying to get approval of the ones that were in the works from his predecessor that needed updates, but that also he just had to take to the ARC. Right, I think.
Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate that. So I was just saying, I'm comfortable with voting on Cape Blanco. I'll take a leap of faith. The Toledo thing bothers me that we bollocked the estimates so badly.
Yeah.
That was a horrible estimate. But I contend it was funded in a previous SOAR cycle, so the board thought it was important enough then that they funded it. So I'm willing to vote for that today. I will not vote for anything else that is connected to Connect Oregon.
Okay.
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 Now that's just me. The other board members have expressed a desire to push this to June. Let me go back and revisit. So Vince, let me start with you.
Yeah, I'm also sensitive to the staff's need, however, to get a bid out and try and get it done this summer. So, if there's the one that we can push forward, great. Let's do that. That's not related to the other Connect Oregon. And then if it's possible to hold off on the others, that would be ideal to me.
Okay, super. Mike, your thoughts? You chimed in.
Yeah, I'm mimic Vince. I'd like to push those out to June as well.
Okay.
So I get a better understanding.
Are you comfortable with going forward with Cape Blanco and Toledo?
Yes.
Okay. Catherine?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to see a construction season missed because that actually really hurts a lot. So I would be fine with Cape Blanco and Toledo for now.
Okay, super. All right, before they call, Catherine's flight back there, we can hear in the background. So let me see if I can get a motion here that kind of works for us.
Chair, if I may,
go ahead.
I just had a couple other slides here. So I just wanted to mention that these projects were reviewed by the Aviation Review Committee on March 31st, and is Chair Knight or are the chairs for the review committee here in this meeting? I wanted to provide this opportunity for them to speak about the review.
Tony, it's Jim Knight. I'm here.
Okay, hi, Jim.
I think Shelley's here too.
Okay. Jim, did you want to just kind of speak about the ARC review of these projects?
I would. Thank you for the opportunity. Chair Meeker and fellow board members, thank you for this chance to be able to talk with you. I think it would be very helpful if I could recite back for you kind of the process that we're seeing on the SOAR grants for ARC review as opposed to the core grants. I do also find it interesting that the ARC committee struggled with particularly Toledo for the exact same reasons that you have done as a board. At the end of the day, we also reacted similar to the board, is that we didn't want these projects to miss their opportunities for construction. I agree that it's very difficult to get construction contracts in place if you start working on it after June. It's going to be very, very difficult. So although we had questions and concerns about the numbers of why did it go from 85,000 to the current number as an example, we still wanted to move this forward. But for today, what I really want to do is to really support discussions that we take a look at what is the ARC's role in reviewing SOAR grants. So just as a real quick refresher, in the core grant process, the applications and the procedures for the applications, the guidelines, the deadlines, they're all published. The staff reviews for completeness of the applications. The staff does scoring and ranking, which is a really important ingredient when we're looking at the core grants. This doesn't happen when we're looking at SOAR grants. So after the staff takes a look at it, then the ARC, we always have sufficient time that we can look at every single application in detail, and we independently review each one of those. And then after that, the ARC meeting is held in a public meeting to discuss the merits, ranking, tie breaking, its final recommendations to the board, and all of this takes place in a public meeting. So now we switch gears with a SOAR grant. The staff presents to the ARC the grant request. There's no other review prior to the ARC for completeness of an application, which kind of makes sense because these applications are being created at the staff level. There's no real review instructions to the ARC of what is it that we should be evaluating, what are we looking for, and what should be the questions. There's no scoring on the grants. And at the end of the day, you have to just scratch your head and say, so exactly what is the ARC's responsibility and what's our authority? I think that as an organization, and an organization I mean staff, the ARC, the board, we've done an amazing good job with the core grants and the ARC process for reviewing grants. And I think we could all hold our heads up very high and say that we've been very objective, we've been very fair, and we've been very open to that process. I'm telling you at this point, my feeling, and I'm hoping that I am correctly reflecting the comments that were shared during the ARC meeting, is that we need to take another look at what is the ARC's responsibility to the core grants. It is very unclear. I think there does need to be a little bit of a reset and a reevaluation of if ARC is going to continue to review SOAR grants that are generated from staff, what exactly is it that's expected of the ARC? I think that we need to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit and then itemize. So what are those steps that must take place before an ARC committee reviews these grants? And then what do we do when there's a question? Who do we take this to? It goes back to the staff. So as a committee, our airports are so important to us that we're looking for ways that we can say yes, as you've done today. But it's really very difficult when the rules of engagement aren't very clear to the ARC members. So that would be my request to the board, is that what does that process look like from your perspective? What does the board want the ARC to do in its review? At this stage, it's no reflection on Tony. In fact, there should never be a sense of concern or disagreement, or we have a hard time working with staff. It's just the opposite. I think that all of us on the ARC membership have great respect for ODA staff, and they've done an amazing job, both particularly with the core grants. I think that that effort that was put into the core grants, that similar effort needs to be put into the SOAR grants. And I think that the ARC would do a much better job of being able to screen these applications and screen the grants before it gets to the board. We just don't have a process to vet those concerns. The request comes to us, we're looking at it and we go, we're not really sure what to do with this. But assuming that they're looking for approval, that staff is looking for the ARC's approval, I think that we fell into a situation where what reasons do we have to not approve? And but what truly is missing is really the specific guidelines of how ARC reviews, how it scores, and what do we do when it doesn't meet those criteria. So if there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer it. Shelley, I don't know if you want to add anything else to those comments. You're certainly welcome to.
Thank you, Chair, Mr. Knight. I know you did specify our concerns, and they weren't necessarily concerns. It was just we didn't have a lot of direction of how we were supposed to look at the SOAR grants and or rank them. So I think there is a missing step. I think it's always good to have a separate set of eyes on the grants, and it's really hard when the grants are completed by staff and the staff presents them, but you just need to have it. For example, the FBO, the Pilot's Lounge, that went from 80,000 to 300,000. It may have been in a separate review. It may have been caught that maybe that wasn't a good cost analysis. So I do think we need to look at the SOAR direction for ARC and establish some different guidelines for ODA staff and also the ARC. But again, I do reiterate what Mr. Knight said. ODA staff, there are small amount of people, but they are mighty and they do such a wonderful job. You know, kudos to them. I have no complaints, no concerns, no questions about their ability and what they're trying to do to better the airports in Oregon.
We essentially just tiptoed into a waterway that we didn't know what to expect when we put our foot in the water. And I think that the help that we need at the ARC level is a little more guidance from the board of how should we proceed on future SOAR grants.
And Jim and Shelley, thank you very much. And you know, the core grant was an iterative process as we got better and better. Probably we need to look at SOAR. You guys provide your time, and that's just an expertise, and that's incredibly valuable. And probably what we need to get into SOAR is, one, do you want outside review or not? If you do want outside review, you know, we're used to ranking. Ranking may not be the way to go, but I would ask, what do you want done? If you want your projects ranked, we're going to have to give them the criteria to rank with, not just, hey, do you guys think these projects are good? You know, every aviation project, there's always something to be said for every project that's recommended. So I think it's the continuing process. You guys have been with us from the beginning on the ASAP program in general. So I appreciate Jim and Shelley. You've been fantastic. Probably need to get together, Tony, with you and Betty, and first answer the question, do you want to give review for state-owned projects be reviewed by a body outside ODAB? There's goodness and there's badness. I mean, that's just the simple projects you need to answer between you two. And then you probably need to come back in the board and explain rationale one way or the other. But if you decide that you do want to give authority to an agency outside of ODAB, then we need to come up with probably some stronger criteria or some clearer criteria. Let me put it that way. Kind of give some sticks to build this house around a little bit so that when we do get Jim and Shelley and those folks in the room, they can make the best use of that incredible brain power they're giving us, and we kind of know the path we're supposed to go down, just like core. Does that make sense?
What I would ask is there a statutory requirement for an outside review agency? And I see Heather's moving her head up and down, is that yes, there is a statutory requirement that an outside body reviews staff the SOAR grants. If it's to be ARC, which would make sense because you have the ARC members are typically managers of airports and quite more knowledgeable than any others in the state regarding airport needs. So I think that ARC would be the appropriate body to do this. I just think it's a few small steps of this is what is expected of the ARC in the review process. That's as simply as I could put that.
Okay. And I agree with that. And just, we probably should take a look at how to flush this out a little bit more. Whether you go with grading criteria, whatever is you need the process. We need a published process that can be repetitive. It can be followed in some kind of a logical step.
Yeah, agree.
Okay. If I may just jump in, I appreciate all of your comments, and I agree that we can provide more clarification. The process for new SOAR requests are laid out in administrative rule, and that does include the ARC review, and it does not. It's different from core, where SOAR projects are not ranked, but they are determined to meet the criteria in the spreadsheets that I included for the 3 SOAR projects that I presented on today. And there was a little bit confusion in the ARC meeting over projects needing to meet all of the criteria, and they don't. They just need to meet some of the criteria. And then the ARC recommends the projects to the board. And so we're at that step now where we're asking board approval. And I think that in the June meeting where I can provide more information on just the SOAR projects in general, as you've asked, we could also go into the process and our policy that we have for SOAR projects, if that would be helpful.
I appreciate that, Tony. If you could, like I said, walk in the June thing, walk us through the process, and walk us through in enough detail. When you give these to the ARC, I want to know exactly what you're asking of them. We need to give them more than just asking, do you meet the criteria? I would imagine a lot of programs, and we probably need to talk about a refresher on how we rank, because we've taken a look at SOAR projects before. So just a refresher on the SOAR projects, and then we need to go a more detailed review of what you specifically ask the ARC when they come into the room. I would appreciate that.
Sure. Okay. Okay, so if there are no other comments, thank you again, ARC chair and co-chair. They did, as he mentioned, they did end up recommending all 3 projects to the board for approval in the March 31st meeting. And so this brings me to my final slide, where we were asking the board for approval for the new Cycle 4 projects, which was the Cape Blanco project and then the Cycle 3 amendments for Pacific City and Toledo.
Okay, once again, I said I'm not ready to vote on any project that's related to the Connect Oregon. So the only thing I want to vote for is to give authorization to proceed with Cape Blanco and Toledo. Does that check?
Okay.
Checks with me.
Okay, so the motion I'm going to recommend, and Kathy, help me out here. You do a great job making sure that I don't, do silliness when I make a motion. So, motion for the board to approve SOAR funding as outlined for Cape Blanco and Toledo. Would that be a significant motion to kind of go with what we got right now?
That works.
Okay, so do I have a first motion for the board to approve funding for the Cape Blanco and Toledo projects as outlined by Tony?
So moved.
I have a first motion by Vince. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mike. All those in favor of approving SOAR funds for Cape Blanco and Toledo as put out by Tony, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, hearing that the funds have been approved for SOAR projects for Cape Blanco and for Toledo. And the expectation is we will have a rather in-depth discussion on SOAR projects at the June meeting.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. And thank you for the discussion. Can you all still see my screen?
We can.
Okay, great. Then the next action item is our request to accept or receive and expend funds for the Cape Blanco project. As we just discussed, House Bill 5202 included appropriations in the amount of our initial Connect Oregon ask to fund the runway and electrical project. And so we're asking for approval to accept and expend the almost $2.6 million from the House bill.
All right, this is a good news story. Any questions from the board about the legislative funds coming to Cape Blanco? So with that, do I have a motion, first motion for the board to approve the Oregon Department of Aviation to receive and expend funds for the Cape Blanco State Airport project as presented?
So moved.
I have a first motion by Vince. Do I have a second?
Second.
I think I have a second by Hilda. Is that correct?
Yes.
All righty. Those that wish to approve the motion as presented, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing no opposition, the motion has passed unanimously. Thank you very much, Tony.
Hey, thank you. So it's 12:40. Do we want to jump into, I have, I think, 13 slides for my operations update.
You bet.
Okay. Can you see that slide now?
Again.
Great. Okay, so just an update on our seasonal airports are still closed: Crescent Lake, McKenzie Bridge, Sandium Junction, and Toketee. Given the recent weather, they were scheduled to open, they're published in the charts, they open May 1st, but given the recent weather, we may extend those with NOTAMs if those closures need to extend. We've had snow in the valley this week, and so some of our mountain airports, we're going to be getting out there to inspect them, make sure that they're safe and operational, and replace windsocks and those kinds of things. But again, if they're not ready to open, we'll have to extend those. I just wanted to provide some information on surface incident mitigation. After a recent uptick in BPDs or just surface incidents at the Aurora State Airport, we are conducting outreach and education to help inform people and mitigate continued surface incidents happening at the airport. We are trying to educate people what the controlled movement area is, and that includes the taxiway and is identified by the solid yellow line with a dashed yellow line behind it. And the solid line is the non-movement or non-controlled side, and then the dashed line is the controlled side. And in order to go across that solid line, individual would need authorization and clearance from the air traffic control tower to cross that. So this right side of the screen, this is outreach that we've sent in letters and email, and we shared in PAM, and we're just trying to reach all users and tenants and through the fence property owners at the airport so that we can prevent those safety incidents from happening in the future. This left side, this is a placard that we're going to be mounting at each keypad at each gate at the airport so that every driver coming into the airport is going to be reminded to remain off of the movement area and not to cross that movement area line. And then just for a little context, Aurora is our only controlled airport out of our 28 state-owned airports. It's the only one with a control tower that requires authorization, and aircraft regardless of clearances, aircraft always have the right of way. We are looking at, and we're planning to close all of the state vehicle gates that access the airport. So a code will be needed for entry for all hours of the day. And again, this is to help control access and prevent surface incidents at the airport.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So Jon Huntsman with Aurora Flight Training. Our business is out of sight of the roadway.
Madam
You're going to
Chair?
stop.
Yeah, John, this is for discussion. We'll come to your, I see your question in chat, but this is for the board to discuss. So we'll come back to you. I see your question. I'm going to get to you. Appreciate it.
Right.
Any questions from the board? Okay. So then for the non-controlled airports, the 27 non-controlled airports, vehicles and pedestrians still need to remain off of taxiways and runways, and aircraft always have the right of way, despite not having a controlled movement area. Okay, staffing update. We are filling 2 full-time positions, and I expect those to post imminently, possibly today, and if not tomorrow. And that is for a second airport maintenance specialist to join our current maintenance specialist, Jerry Sturris, in maintaining our airports, and then a new airport leasing and contract specialist that will be dedicated to leasing and other property-related items going forward. You can apply, look for these postings and apply at oregon.gov/jobs, and I encourage you all to share that information. And then we're also filling our 2 temp positions this year. So Don Hankwitz, who retired as an operations specialist last fall, he'll be joining us for the summer mowing season. And then and he actually joined us Monday this week. So we're very happy to have him on board again. And then Taylor Meliza will be returning for a 5th season, helping us mow and maintain our airports. A little winter weather update at Joseph. Our ops staff issued more than 165 FICONs. These are field condition notams at the airport for the 21 to 22 winter season. So we're really trying to bolster our condition reporting so that we can have the most current information available to our pilots. And this year was a difficult year with the Wallowa County Chieftain reporting near record snowfall in December of 21, where in just one day on December 14th, they recorded an average of 14 inches of snow. And if I'm remembering the article correctly, some parts of town recorded 28 inches of snow, and the last time they had that amount of snowfall, I believe, was in the 1920s. So it's been a very interesting year at Joseph, and we look forward to the snow melting here soon. Okay, so I had in the last meeting in February, I provided an update on the Tillamook County community grant that we applied for the Pacific City Airport, and so they had postponed the award decision that was originally scheduled for March to April 13th, and that was yesterday, and I'm still looking for an update on that, but I have not been able to get an update on our grant request for that project. And then Betty had mentioned earlier the BIL projects and funding for our airports. I wanted to give just a overview of some of the projects that we are looking at for our NIPIAS airports that are receiving the BIL funding. At Aurora, we are looking at designing and constructing a runway rehabilitation. And we are looking at adding an airfield backup generator for the airfield lighting. It's going to add the runway lighting to the being on backup generator, where currently only the air traffic control tower is on the generator. And then we are looking at some pavement maintenance and markings, which is also going to bolster our efforts in mitigating surface incidents by having fresh markings on the taxiways. And then we're looking at snow removal equipment. We're looking at the potential to de-ice at the airport and to plow and broom snow more effectively at the airport. And then in addition to that, we're looking at a building to park the snow removal equipment, And we're also looking to take advantage of the contract tower portion of BIL for competitive grants to get a flight data input-output machine, which would add a lot of efficiencies for both our tower controllers and then TRACON at PDX. At Independence, we're looking at a PAPI replacement. The PAPI there has been inconsistent. It works at times, but it's mostly unserviceable. So we're looking at replacing a non-functioning PAPI. And then the north portion of the fence that has been eliminated from the current project, and we're pushing out to a second phase for the fence project at Independence. And I'm going to have more information on that here in a minute, and to try to address some of the comments that were at the beginning of this meeting. At Joseph, we're looking at snow removal equipment and snow removal equipment building, and we're also looking at a PAPI replacement. At Malino, we're looking at a PAPI replacement and a new west taxiway connector, where this airport has just a single point of access for aircraft coming to or from the runway and taxiway. And then at most of our airports that do not have weather equipment, we are looking at new AWAS equipment. So Bandon, Chiloquin, Condon, Cottage Grove, Independence, Lebanon, Malino, and Siletz Bay. And then finally, we are looking at pavement maintenance, catching up on deferred maintenance, and pavement improvements at most of our NIPIAS airports. And then structural removal updates. We have completed the survey for Aurora, and we have had our kickoff meeting for the EA rewrite with the FAA. That was done in March, and so we're expecting for public comments to be issued here soon, and then findings later this month or potentially in May. We're still on schedule for our fiscal year 22 grant for appraisals, and that cannot begin until the EA is complete. But right now we believe we're still on schedule for that. And then once appraisals are completed, then we can go into easement acquisition and obstruction removal in our 23 grant. At Malino, survey has begun, and the EA has already been completed here. So similar to Aurora, we are expecting appraisals to begin in the 22 grant. We are looking at identifying trees and with our survey work that's ongoing, and so that we can get certain trees that are on our property and where we already have an easement on neighboring properties, so that we can get that done as soon as possible. And that'll have to begin when nesting season completes in the fall of 22. And then again, easement acquisition and obstruction removal for the remainder of the trees will go on through the fiscal year 23 grant. And then at Chiloquin, it's a similar story. Survey will begin after Malino is completed, and then same timeframes for appraisals and easement acquisitions. So that's it for obstruction removal. Going on to the fence, as Heather mentioned, the Cottage Grove project is substantially complete. The only thing remaining is hydroseed, which is still to be scheduled. And then at Independence, the east portion along the road is nearing completion, and then they're going to begin work here on the west portion. So construction is ongoing. We don't expect any impacts to aircraft operations, and although personnel and equipment will be on the west side of the runway for the next couple of months. We expect this project to be completed in May. And then I did just want to address some of the comments that were made about this project. So there was a question about the gates being closed, and that south gate has been open, and it will be closed, similar to all of the other automated gates that are going to be part of this project. There's an existing keypad, and then we're installing a new keypad for a redundancy, because that sensor for exiting the airport is still going to be in effect. It's going to be in operation. So that sensor will still work. And then and businesses that utilize that south gate can share, or they can meet their customers or any other visitors they have to open that gate, but they can share that combination as well. for their customers to access their business. And just as far as communication, I just have a couple notes here. The 90% designs for this project were shared when I first joined the department in April of 2020. We had further outreach before the construction was slated to begin in the fall of 21. And then we worked pretty extensively with tenants and airport groups over some issues that they had. We heard them loud and clear. We agreed to eliminate the north portion of the fence in this phase because it was perceived to be too close to the runway. We've eliminated the barbed wire on the east portion of the fence along the airport road. We've agreed to include 2 additional vehicle gates as well as 2 additional pedestrian gates along the east portion. And we realigned a portion of the fence near the restaurant to prioritize additional parking. So and we had some follow-up meetings in January and February where we talked about the changes that we agreed to and where we shared updated plans and change orders. We had more than 4, or we had 4 change orders to include all of these changes. And so I just wanted to provide a little more context on that. Are there any questions?
Tony, there seems to be a discussion here about closing gates. I mean, everybody gets a little grumpy when you close gates and that kind of thing. Is it possible? I know Betty has been down to Independence. I don't know whether it was an open meeting or not, but for instance, could you get with Pam and have Pam host a meeting so that they could have folks just to talk about what's going to happen with trying to get runway incursions down? I will say this, the runway incursions can't happen. We'll just shut access altogether to Aurora if those runway incursions keep going. So that's the given. The runway incursions must stop. But before we close the gate, could we get some more information out? These folks maybe just weren't there when you guys were in previous discussions. How can we get some more information out so folks have a chance to kind of maybe chit chat with you all?
Sure. And just a point of clarification, I don't believe any of the recent surface incidents were runway incursions. They were just on the taxiway.
Okay, taxiway, gotcha.
Yep. And this has been a hotly discussed item in PAM and through other user groups and just in correspondence with airport users at Aurora. I had mentioned and I'm just looking for the date, the most recent PAM meeting, which was at the end of March, we had a discussion as a group in PAM about the surface incidents and ways to mitigate it. And we did talk about closing the gates in that meeting.
So I'm just looking for outreach. We got the PAM, anything like for Jon Huntsman, can he join a group? How does he get regular updates? Can he call you? What's because what I don't want is right now we're talking operational issues in an Oregon Aviation Board that is supposed to talk strategic and financial. This is not the place to do day-to-day Oregon Department of Aviation business. How do the individuals call you and just get the latest?
Sure. So I have a list of email contacts that I use for outreach for people who have asked for information and updates for the Aurora State Airport. And so these gates are certainly not going to close overnight. And so there's going to be additional outreach where I'm going to reach out to all of through the fence groups, all of our tenants that are on state-owned property, and everyone else who has asked for updates and information for the Aurora State Airport. And to let them know, give them plenty of heads up, the gates are going to be closing, and then we'll make sure that the code information is shared effectively, but also privately with those who need it. And then if anyone else would need the code, they can reach out to us and we can share the code as needed.
Okay, and then Dan is concerned about new customers. Where can individual businesses put up signs, or what's the when somebody just comes to the airport that hasn't been to the airport before, how do they get a phone number? How do they get a point of contact, just so they can reach folks? Can individual businesses put up signs, or are you the sign police? How do they communicate with new customers?
Sure. So that placard that I had shared earlier, where it reminded everyone, it was a big attention sign and reminded everyone to not cross the movement line. That was conceptual, and the signs have not been printed yet. So adding contact information for emergency access or just regular operational inquiries, we'll have contact information for people to get in touch with us.
Okay, we just need to work on that. And I don't know if we need to get some, the numbers of every business up there. So if somebody arrives at the gate, they know which number to call. We just need to, I copied the concerns about new customers.
Sure. Yeah, and for state gates, we only have 2 gates at the airport. The rest of the gates are through private property. And I believe there are some signs out there. I don't know if they have contact information on them, but that would ultimately be their responsibility.
Okay, copy that.
Okay, any other questions?
And then for independents, Betty, just, continuing the flow of information there. We've got several organizations at Aurora. It's hard not to get involved at Aurora. Independents, do you guys have some kind of generic, information site? Just, there's a lot of interest there now.
Okay, I'm sorry, Martha, I don't understand the question.
Just for information and independence, for folks who are curious about, the gate is going to close at 6. When does it start? What date? How does that information get transmitted? Is it on the local, is it on our website is it on the Independence website? I just wonder how people get generic information about upcoming changes to fencing and that kind of stuff.
Okay. Tony, do you want to answer that one, or do you want me to take it?
I can jump in. So I conduct most of my outreach to airport users and stakeholders in email. And so the project is still ongoing. So when we're approaching completion, I will certainly share more information about operational changes in email. And then we have posted our 2 meetings that we had that were open to anyone to attend in January and February this year. We had recorded those and we posted those on our website. And so posting an update on our website is certainly something we can do as well.
Okay, and just, do we make it easy, like coming changes section in our website? I mean, just so that if somebody who is not, let's say new guy wants to come to Independence, when he did, and first thing he's going to do is hit up the website. Somebody who's maybe not on your email list, how do they just get aware of the latest and greatest?
Yeah, right on our homepage, on the front page, we have a Be Informed section with latest updates, and that's where those meeting recordings were posted.
Okay, and then if we can help out with any additional signage and markings, that's also great as well.
Sure.
Okay, so with that, lots of interesting, and like I said, I would continue to reach out to Tony on operational issues. Tony, make sure that you're getting back with folks, and they seem that lots of folks want to talk to you.
For sure.
All right. Okay, so that leaves us then. Are we driving into board updates? Is that what I'm here seeing?
Okay, I'm unmuted. Yes, looks like that is time for that. So if any of the board members have announcements or events or information they'd like to share with the rest of the board and the public.
Okay. I know that Catherine is following up with the Aurora PAM meetings and stuff like that. And Jon Huntsman had a question about, Heather, could you get back with Jon and just make sure that we understand, when we can give public testimony for the master plan at Aurora? That would be great.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Actually, the public comment period for chapter 1 through 3, I think, just ended on the 12th and was open for 45 days, but we accept public comment throughout the entire process. So there's a button to submit. They all have been told at every meeting, and it's also on our website too. People can submit public comments at any time throughout the process. We welcome them to do so.
All right, Jon, head to our website. You got a button to push.
And if I may add, people can also go onto our website, click to subscribe to Gov Delivery, and they can click any of the topics that they wish to receive updates on that we send out on a regular basis. So that's another way to make sure that they get their emails into our system for notifications.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so for board updates, I don't have anything. Hilda, is this your last board meeting, or are you going to make it? Are you going to make the June meeting?
I wanted to address that appropriately. So with your permission, I'd like just 1 minute of your time.
You bet. Go ahead.
So I wanted to let everybody know, as Kathy posted and you just said, that I have decided to not apply for a second term on the board. I have been given this great opportunity that will have me traveling a lot, and it just felt like the right thing to do at this time to continue with the mission that I started with the board. It was something that happened because of what I was doing with the board, so it was great. And I wanted to say thank you to you, to my colleagues on the board, to Kathy, to Betty, to every single person at the Oregon Department of Aviation. It has been a wonderful ride. It was wonderful to be at 50,000 feet and see the big picture, and to also be in the weeds. It was wonderful to learn so much from the perspective of all the different stakeholders, whether it's a pilot or an organization that is a for-profit, a nonprofit, a government agency. It was eye-opening. It was overwhelming at times, but it was also very rewarding. And it has been an experience that I will treasure because it will help me become a better pilot, stakeholder, board member, and person in the future. And so it is with very, very mixed feelings and a bittersweet feeling that I've decided to not seek a second term. But I'll still be around. We accomplished a mission for education and aviation career pathways. So I feel like it was a great experience. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Hilda. And you've been absolutely fantastic proponent for education. And she's being really modest. She's actually with the, are you a tri-state or are you the entire Pacific Northcoast rep for Pacific rep for this education grant that's being offered?
Pacific Northwest, including Idaho, Montana, Washington, and Oregon.
So yeah, Hilda's going to be really busy, and she's going to be giving out lots of really good funding for education. And we're tickled pink that we had her on the board, and we knew her when she was just a little person. Now she's a big person. So we're all proud of her. And one day, you know, hopefully she'll grace us and come give us an update on the latest and greatest on what's happening in her world in a year or two.
We can tell you that the aerospace education career pathways modules that we were creating here have now caught on, and it's on fire to bring it down from the community college level career pathway to the high school career pathway level. So it's all our fault.
Well, you know, a good deed's never punished with more work, you know, so there you have it.
So yes, we're addressing that pilot shortage as fast as we can.
Oh, fantastic. Boy, it's going to be, you're going to have your work solidified for, I bet you, a decade. Okay, well, thank you again. And we look forward to, you know, crossing paths with you in the future.
Welcome.
Cool. Any other board members that have anything going on out there that they'd like to talk about? Okay, so Betty, once again, if you could come back to us with maybe a little bit of update on how to improve the communication at Independence. I just want to make sure that we widen the net. You know, Marcy out there is talking about that she felt that she was out of the loop. I would like to have, you know, her concerns addressed. Kind of give some thought about maybe how we miss some folks, and we're never going to get everybody. That's just never going to happen. But if we can expand our education outreach, that would be great. So just come back to us in June and we could talk a little bit about Independence and just generally how we get information out to the larger public and how we tell the public that something is coming on, because not everybody knows to look to our website. They may not know a project is ongoing. I don't know how, it's always an issue we're going to chase. We're always going to chase communication, but the more we work on it, the better it'll be.
Okay, sure.
All right, well, with that, Kathy, is there any business that from the last board meetings that we didn't, we need to follow up on? Do you have anything on your checklist?
Just a couple of things. Thank you, Chair. Actually, I want to ping Kristen, you're still on, right? About the emails. I didn't know they were working.
Yeah, so the agency and the board are updating to new emails. So it'll be the same beginning and then the end will be odav.oregon.gov. And those, it sounds like Martha said hers is already working. But your old email, it's not going to be shut off. So if somebody is still sending emails to your old email, you'll still get it in your new inbox as we transition over. And so we'll update our website with your new email addresses, but you're not going to be losing any emails, so don't worry about that.
And for the board members who never got them working, we need to hear from all y'all. If you didn't get them working in the first place, they may need assistance at this point.
Can we do this? Can you do me a favor, send a test email out to each one of us, and then if we don't respond, hound us?
Yes, we can do that.
All right.
And then I'm making note of that. And then you have been assigned training through your Workday login. And there's a couple of things that are required from all people who are serving on boards. There was a pause as the governor's executive appointments office sorted out who was supposed to do what and where. So that's been figured out. And so anything that you are required to do between now and the end of the year, or for new board members, I think it's within the first 6 months, to go ahead and get those trainings completed. You just go onto your Workday login under the apps, click that to open learning, and it's all in there. If you have any trouble, you got my email, get a hold of me. I'll help walk you through it. Because Workday got a little bit more difficult when they dropped all of the apps one layer in instead of on the home page. They didn't ask me, they just did it. And then topics for future board meetings. I've just made a couple of notes on the, we're going to be revisiting the Soar projects, post Connect Oregon. And you're going to be revisiting, Pavement Maintenance Program update. And I'm trying to remember if there was something else.
Aurora Master Plan. I will be giving a full update of the Aurora Master Plan process to date, Kathy.
Okay.
And then did you put the SOAR process? Not just the SOAR projects, but process
okay,
for discussion.
got it. Okay, that's what I have so far. And then we'll have some rulemaking. But is that going to be June or is it going to be August? I'm thinking pinging Andrea on this one.
So June, I believe, for tall towers or tall structures.
That's the aeronautics fee?
Yes. And the following board, we're only going to do one at a time, and then the following board meeting for ASAP, right?
Okay.
Or vice versa. We'll just make sure we only do one per each board meeting.
Okay. So it'll be either for the aeronautical fees or for the ASAP. Okay.
And then Kathy, I'd like to revisit communication to each and every tenant and leaseholder that we have at all various airports out there. I'd like to know how we know emails are active. I would like to know how we communicate with them.
Got it. Okay.
So maybe just an overview of the communications program that we, or our process, our protocols.
I'd like to know how you actually find that they have good emails. I mean, if you send an email and nothing responds for 2 years, how do we know that? I mean, how do we know that we have active contact with leaseholders, tenants, business owners at the airport? I got the public, a generic individual, that's maybe hard, but we should have active points of contacts and verified points of contact for all the businesses and the folks who we do business with on every day.
Certainly. And then what I meant, I was going to walk you through at that time, our push notifications, which is what Kathy mentioned. And so we do test those out. So we don't sign people up. They're responsible for signing up because of spam and whatnot. And people should be responsible to what they want in their own inboxes. And so we do test those occasionally. Pretty quarterly, would you say, Kathy, to make sure that they're accurate, that they're getting to the customers and the stakeholders that have asked for them, and we work on making sure they're accurate at least on our end. And I know Tony has an additional step for these holders and other stakeholders.
That's great, and just as long as we can review it, I'm just interested. Vince, you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, maybe you talked about this before. Are we thinking about an in-person meeting yet, or are we still planning remote for a little bit? At least for June, it's the only one I kind of care about, but.
We did talk about that once the governor rescinded the restrictions on in-person meetings, that we as a board would now look at going back to in-person and where we wanted it. So you're correct. We need to talk about that in June and where we want to go.
But June will likely still be remote.
Are you offering to host so we can see you one last time?
Last one.
No, I was just asking, because we're starting to come back here at in our offices in the next, in April and May, and so I just didn't know where the state was at, and I heard a request to go to Aurora, or so anyway, I just didn't know if we were getting back on that.
Yeah, I think so. At one point we talked about we'd have our first meeting at Salem, just because it's been a while, and that allows the staff to kind of nice, easy into an on-ramp back into live meetings. So I take Vince's, it's probably time we start, and probably we should have June. Is there any reason not to have a live meeting in June at the Salem location?
No, there's no reason, and we would love to see everybody in person. I would just ask that, today we had 35 people participating. If you remember our offices, our conference room, you couldn't even stand 35 people in that room. It's a squeeze just to get the board members and staff in there. There is no room for visitors or guests in that space. So we would likely look at someplace other than the ODAV office. If we host it in Salem in June, we'll find a space that's big enough for all of our board members, staff, and guests, and also a way to do it remote or do a hybrid so that people that are unable to travel can still participate and see the board functions. So if you're interested in doing a June in person, we can make that happen. If you want it here in Salem, we can make it happen. It just won't be in our office building. We'll find another site.
And that's what I think you may find, that if we go hybrid, that not all 35 are going to show up at the meeting. But we've met at we've met in your office building, and we've met over there at the airport. Both worked fine. I'll leave it up to y'all, but I do think it's time to go back to in person, and we'll find, like I said, go sweet talk the airport.
Okay.
We've met in there before.
Okay.
And it'll have to be hybrid.
You bet.
Yeah.
I think that's great, because if we can have hybrid, the folks that are around the airport that only want to listen in to something that's, a 15-minute update, they don't have to travel all the way here. So that is max convenience to our customers out there. So I appreciate you keeping it hybrid, Kathy. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, so for June, plan on meeting in person in Salem. And are we going to have an executive session then as well? I take it?
Yes.
Okay, so that'll be that. Sounds good. I guess, and if we can have the executive session, because we could do something new and different. Can we have the executive session at the beginning? Just schedule us an hour. And that way, that'll give us a hard deadline and we can talk a little bit if there's anything we can provide information from that executive session to the public session later on.
So 9 o'clock in the morning for executive, 10 o'clock for the board meeting. Something like that.
Maybe, yeah, we probably need to put the, you know what, we've got a lot of board members that haven't had it in person. We should probably find out, you know, what best start time goes for, you know, Mike and Tom will be back by then. I just want to make sure that we got to get them up to speed. So let's work on times and we'll figure something out.
And you'll have 2 new board members in June as well.
Yep.
Yeah, 9 or 10 for me is okay.
Okay.
And Tom lives like 2 minutes away from me, so I know how long it takes.
Okay, so super. So that's easy. And then, you know, depending, I may come over early and just spend the night. We'll talk all about this offline. That's all administrative detail.
Okie doke.
All right. Any reattacks? Thank you for bringing that up, Vince. I totally forgot about it. Okay, so going once, going twice. I don't hear anything. So it's been a great board meeting. Once again, congratulations to all the folks at Joseph. Great process, great product. Thanks again, and I will see you all in person, God open, in June. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great month. Bye-bye.